Welcome to SicEm365 Radio.
Brewer to the air, wide open is Ebner for the easy touchdown. Well, he scored one already on the ground, this time through the air, and the senior from Henderson, Texas, a couple of scores already.
Are you a SicEm365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at SicEm365.com.
Purdy escapes, throws downfield, and intercepted. Kalen Barnes comes up with it. Their best cover corner has a broken thumb.
Have you downloaded the SicEm365 Radio app? Do it today on the App Store and Google Play.
Here's Brewer, looking to the end zone. He's got a big touchdown. Drake Dabney.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome in to a very special edition of SicEm365 Radio. It is National Signing Day. We are a little over a week from Christmas, but for college football coaches and teams, today is Christmas. It is the day where you finally get to put some pen to paper and make official the recruiting class, or most of the recruiting class in most cases, that you will be bringing into the fold for 2021. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. It's going to be a great morning, and we're going to be talking all about the 2021 class for the Baylor Bears as these signatures start to roll in. We'll talk about the players. We'll talk about what they're bringing to the table, and we'll also have a little bit of video for you, and we'll have some interviews for you as well. So we got a lot in store. Very happy to be here at the SicEm365 studios. Craig Smoak with you, SicEm365 Radio, Jack and Armstrong. Thank you guys for being here very early in the morning to run the mothership. And to my left, my partner in crime on Trust the Podcast, here in studio, a very special appearance because it is National Signing Day. Grayson Grunhoefer, how we doing, man?
Man, this is Christmas for me.
Yeah, I know.
Come on, this is what I've been doing all year to lead up to this very moment right here, and this is going to be a really fun day to talk about some of the big-time recruits that Baylor is going to be getting in this 2021 class, and I'm just excited to see these signatures start to come in and just see these guys make it official because it's been a long process, and Dave Aranda's first full recruiting class. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, he had his fingerprints, Grayson, on some of the class last year, much like Matt Rule did in year number 1, because, he came in, he had to finish it off, keep it intact and then add a little bit as well. But this has been from day one for him. This has been ground zero all the way up. He's built this recruiting class, and, 17 strong is what we're expecting. There's 17 commits. All 17 told me right before we went on the air, you're expecting to sign today. It is recruiting, so crazy things can happen, but that is the expectation.
Yeah, that definitely is the thought process right here. And I will say, as things have led up to this signing day, we talked a little bit about the possibility of Baylor potentially getting to maybe 20 commits, maybe 20 signees, but it's looking more and more likely that Baylor just takes the guys that are committed and maybe waits for maybe 1 or 2 more, and that's about it. So this looks like the majority of their class right here, a solid foundation to build upon. And I will tell you, unlike the previous staff, it does look like February might actually have a little more drama than in previous years. Of course, Rule and staff pretty much took care of business early on, but with everything going on with the transfer portal and junior college football kind of being delayed, it seems like February might be a bigger deal.
Yeah, JUCO ball being played in the spring, right? Yeah. So that is something that we haven't talked a whole lot about, but that does kind of change things up a little bit. So a very heavy high school class for Baylor. Obviously, you've got some big names, the quarterback in Kyron Drones. I'll tell you right now, we're going to hear from him on SicEm365 radio later on this afternoon. Look at that graphic. Look at these boys behind the scenes putting together this graphic. Those are the players committed to Baylor, all 17, pretty even. Look at that offense and defense, and of course, QB1 of the class, the only QB of this class, but Kyron Drones out of Shadow Creek High School. You got to know him throughout this process, Grayson, and it's what you would consider, I guess, kind of the crown jewel of the class in some ways? Yeah,
he's definitely the headliner. And I would say anytime you bring in a quarterback that's a 4-star guy, a guy who went to the Elite 11 camp and really played well, it just provides a ton of hype. And I know Baylor is a school, at least for this season, that had a lot of, I guess you'd say, drama with the fans about the quarterback position.
Just a little bit.
I think everyone's really excited to see what Kyron can do, and he'll be here in the spring. He'll be early enrolling at Baylor as well. So, he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on, and he's actually still going in the playoffs right now. They made it to the second round, so he'll be looking to actually go to back-to-back state championships and win back-to-back state championships, but in a different classification, as Shadow Creek's playing in 6A this season.
Yeah, Shadow Creek's still alive. Kyron Drones looking for that ring, as you mentioned, and what a talented player. And he does make things quite interesting because, of course, Grayson, as you mentioned, the transfer market, we're awaiting the first signee to roll in, by the way. And once that signature comes across, we will get into a deep dive of said player. We got a couple of interviews also that we'll have on the program today, as Grayson was a man on fire. Tate Williams, you talked to him, also Devin Lemire and Cam Bonner as well. So we'll be hearing from all three of those players once their signatures come in. And not only are Jack and Armstrong behind the scenes and Grayson and I up here, but Brian Ethridge will be joining us as well. So we'll get his thoughts here in just a little while on this recruiting class as well. So just waiting on the first signature to come in. But the quarterback position is a fun one, I guess, kind of in a way now, because it's different, I guess. But we've seen this transfer portal already get lit up all across the country, Grayson. And Baylor had a couple of their own additions. John Lovett, obviously, at running back, decides to grad transfer. Good luck to him. I thought maybe he'd go take a look at the pros, but it probably makes more sense when you rush for like 300 yards to maybe go play somewhere else and get some more tape out there. But Charlie Brewer, that was the big story this week. On Sunday, didn't take very long for him to make his decision known. He announces he's transferring. I noticed his father said to the Austin paper that he's going to probably take about a week or so, but that obviously changes things immensely. And I know that you know Jacob Zeno from his recruitment a couple years back. Had not seen him all year, and then we see him on Saturday, and then Charlie makes his announcement. You got Kyron Drones coming in. You got Blake Shapen. Who am I forgetting? Gary Bohannon. We'll see what happens there. But how do you feel about this quarterback spot, knowing that it's kind of inexperienced, but you clearly have some talent that's building right there?
Well, the hope is obviously that Gary Bohannon and Jacob Zeno are ready to go. I mean, one of them has to be. I mean, there's pretty much no choice there, and I think the spring is going to be really interesting. I know Blake Shapen got a ton of hype kind of throughout the season as what he did on scout team and in practice and things like that, but he's going to be playing baseball. And so I think it's a real opportunity for guys like Jacob Zeno, Gary Bohannon to possibly cement their role as the starter for this team. And I also think it's great for Kyron to be able to come into a situation where he can learn immediately and really try to follow the example of these guys. And I honestly think it's going to come down to who's the best leader is probably going to be the starting quarterback for Baylor next year. And it's going to be fun to watch. But it was cool to get a glimpse of what Jacob Zeno could do since we haven't gotten to see a whole lot of him throughout his career outside of that Oklahoma game. And, you know, he looked all right. I'm not going to take too much away because it was against backups and in a blowout, but definitely fun to see. And Baylor's got a lot of thinking to do as far as what they're going to do next season. And big loss there, of course, John Lovett as well, another big loss, but a guy that was a 4-year single-digit guy, and I think he's going to end up landing at a Power 5 school. I think they both have a great shot at doing that and possibly continuing their career and maybe making it to the NFL. We'll see. Yeah,
so good luck to the former Bears. We're going to be celebrating the new Bears here, and I saw Justin Johnson, running backs coach, just sent out a boom across Twitter. So somebody signed. We're going to see who that is in just a moment, but that appears as though the start of Baylor's recruiting class is now underway and becoming official. So once they send out the info, we will get to that player and we will break them on down. What do you think about this class in general, just the way you've watched it kind of grow and build? And, you know, at one point it was a larger number, and then they, of course, had some departures over, you know, the last month and a half or so. But maintaining what they were able to maintain, these 17 guys, how are you feeling about addressing the needs they needed to address? And what, I guess, you know, did they maybe not do? But mostly, what were the positives to this class in your opinion?
Well, just I think the first place to start was their run from about, I guess you'd say, March all the way till August, where they really made up the majority of their class. I mean, that's where they got most of their commitments and where they were able to kind of put together all the pieces. And then, of course, August hit, and that's where you found out during the season they lost some recruits, lost some commits, guys like Hal Presley, Roderick Daniels, Byron Murphy. So, you know, you add all that together and you just go, okay, so they lost some guys, they add some guys, and of course they were able to finish with a few more wide receivers, which is something they needed to do, adding Cameron Bonner and Monterey Baldwin. But you look at this class as a whole, I think offensive line was an area they really wanted to address, and they took 3 offensive linemen in this class. I think they want more, personally, and I think February is going to be an area where they try to address it even more. I think they would like to see that number get up to 5. And that might not even be including transfers. So I think there's still some work to do there. At wide receiver, 4 guys. I mean, that's a loaded class at wide receiver. That's a lot of prospects to add. I think they'd be okay adding another one. I still think they could dip into the transfer portal for the wide receiver position. But overall, I think they did a great job at that spot. I think if you look around just kind of the other positions, quarterback, check. You got Kyron Drones. Running back, I mean, check immensely. You got a guy who's setting all kinds of records at Lindale, is going to be playing in the state championship game against Argyle, and Jordan Jenkins. He has been phenomenal. He's got over 50 touchdowns this year. Pretty remarkable what he's been up to, and just the kind of performances that he's had leading his team the way that he has. Lindale's first ever state championship, so pretty crazy there. On the defensive side, they addressed the secondary extremely well, and the linebacker position. So very interested to see how that kind of all comes together and takes shape. I will say, I think we talked about the offensive line needing to add more guys. The defensive line is an area that it's pretty shocking to see them only have 2 commits in this class with Dakota Doyle Robinson and Cooper Lands. I think they're going to need to add guys, whether that's in February or through transfers. I think that's an area that they desperately need more bodies. And, you know, I will say they are in on one guy today, Jalen Samuels out of Sam Rayburn, but he's committed to SMU, and it's looking pretty likely that he's going to end up signing with SMU instead of flipping to Baylor.
SMU putting together a pretty good little class. I mean, I guess if you win consistently like they have the last couple of years, then that's eventually what happens, and the same thing will happen if Dave Aranda goes and wins, 8-9 games, a couple seasons in a row. You'll see a little bit of an uptick in Baylor's recruiting class as well. We saw that with Matt Rule in last year's class to a certain extent with the success that they had. So addressing a lot of needs, but there's 2 signing days. This is signing day number 1, and then in February, we will get back to the normal signing day, first Wednesday in February. But that's typically now been reserved for a lot of the 5 stars, the blue chips, and those types of guys. So we'll see what good 75, 80, 85% of guys signing today. I mean, would you say that's about accurate? Yeah,
that's about right. At least it has been in the past. I think the transfer portal is making things a little bit weird, and also the JUCO. The JUCO's not playing till the spring. Also, I think makes schools weary on what exactly they'd be getting out of a JUCO without seeing them play their second or first season on campus. So I think that's played a huge factor in all of this, and also roster spots. I mean, teams could be losing, 20 guys and not really know it, and therefore have to make up some ground in February. So I think this might be a kind of outlier year potentially for that February signing day, which, like you said, has kind of been watered down a little bit due to this early signing period.
Yeah, it's for mostly the drama queens. Kind of. I mean, in a way, it's for the guys who have Clemson and Bama and like Ohio State, and they're trying to decide between those 3 schools. So they're going to do it live on like CBS Sports or something.
Right. And the other big part about it is most times those games are in January. The Under Armour game, the Army All-American game, at least what it used to be called. Now I think it's just the All-American game. But that's usually what they wait for and make those announcements then. But that has changed because I don't believe those games are happening this year. I don't, at least to my knowledge, I don't know that they're going to actually take place this season.
The All-American games?
Yeah, I don't know if they are.
How could you do those, really? It'd be hard to do. You'd have to bubble up a bunch of high school prospects, and I guess you could do that, but it would be, I don't know, it would be kind of difficult in comparison to the way you're doing it from the pros. But glad to have you here. Again, Craig Smoak, Grayson Grunhoefer, we'll have Brian Ethridge with us here in just a second. Jack and Armstrong producing, and it's bright and early. Actually, it's not even bright yet. It's still dark outside, but we're at 101 Elm, the SicEm365 studios. Not even a full year into these studios, but our first National Signing Day show. So that was part of kind of the vision and things like that would be to be able to do something like this. So we're happy to be here and having our own very first annual signing day special in the studios. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It is. How things quickly change in a year.
I think we can all chalk up 2020 as a year of change. Various change and it's been wild, but it's worked out really well. So I'm seeing a couple of Baylor coaches now. I mentioned Justin Johnson with the big boom signal, and Brian Nance followed up with a big nasty looking bear picture, like nasty as in angry, and said big mood. So they're fired up. The coaches are up and at them, and I guess firing that fax machine up, and so they will bring in these first few signatures. I think Jalen Gibson was supposed to sign right about now, and who knows with some of these school ceremonies. You may think, I'm signing at 7 a.m., and then they have the band play, and then, mom wants to say something, and then the principal wants to chime in because he wants to get a little bit of shine.
And they have 8 guys potentially signing because they do the whole fall, all the players. It's not just football, which is pretty interesting.
And if it's Allen, then it takes an hour and a half because they have 60 football signees, 35 basketball signees, and men's and women's, and it gets crazy. But yeah, these schools typically do, I guess depending on the number of football guys you would have, rather large signing day ceremonies. And for the ones that do all the sports together, those can take a little while as they go through each one of them and honor them and all of that. So, we'll get to some of these interviews that Grayson got before today. Was able to talk to 3 players, as I mentioned. We'll get to some of those as those guys sign and become official, because the last thing that we want to do, not that we have any concerns over the 3 guys you talked to, because that would be awfully foolish to do a 15-minute interview with a Baylor guy and then flip around to Texas State or something like that. But don't want to play their interview and then just something goes sideways. And, hey, yeah, we like Ryan Lingyellow's great, but he's going to Texas Tech or something. No, we don't expect that to happen. But just saying, we're going to wait on the interviews until those guys become official. And it's not just Grayson. I mentioned Brian Ethridge would be joining us as well, and he is with us here in the SicEm365 studios. Brian, how are we doing on this college football Christmas Day?
Doing pretty well, except for the 12 o'clock, whoever in the hotel room left the alarm on at 12 o'clock, and then also was a 12:30 that popped in. So sorry for the Homewood Suites. You put your alarms outside. I opened the window and just tried to throw it outside. Just kidding. It is on the floor. But, that was about the worst part of it. And then they actually called and tried to wake me up. And I was like, no, it's not happening. So, and then got a late start. But Lolita's got their food. So we're ready to, as soon as we have a commercial break, we got some good tacos. And just waiting for these names to come across. So that's I know we got some names got moved around a little bit. I think Jordan Jenkins moved to 9:30, but no worries there on him. And but just ready to dive into this as soon as we start getting the names come across.
Yeah, so at any moment we'll start to get those. Again, we've had these great graphics that Armstrong and company put together.
It looks great too on the I was watching online getting the tacos. It looks great.
Well, the tacos smell good, I will tell you that. And I can tell you that Jack and Armstrong will definitely be over there invading those in just a second, as will Grayson and I. But I just feel like Armstrong and Jack are closer and will beat us to the punch. So
Jack's
hopefully,
eyeing them.
I see like saliva growing in the corners of his mouth. I think I'm just kidding, Jack. But we do have Lolitas here. We got tacos. We got the studio all set up, and we've got 17 guys to break down as we start to take a look at the future of Baylor. And Brian, I was talking to Grayson about this. I mean, a couple of the transfers announced earlier this week in John Lovett and Charlie Brewer, and not to dwell on those guys and not to say anything bad, best of luck to them. I mean, they were quality Baylor Bears through and through. Wish them the absolute best, but that does open up a couple spots if the Bears want to, as Grayson was talking about, add a couple guys in February. But as far as these 17 guys on paper that we're expecting to sign today, how do you feel as though the Baylor 2021 class shaped up?
The one thing about it is we've been talking about it on our text group. Is just there's not guys you look at and say, he's got to do something to work out. That he's projectable there, but he's not a player yet. All these guys have made plays. All these guys still have projectability to them and growth, but it's not like that they're going to have to develop for 3 or 4 years. I mean, the O-line will obviously. That's something that's always got to develop over 2 to 3 years. To get strength and be man strength is what I always call it, because those guys, you don't bring a true freshman in and get him beat up. I mean, you've seen it happen. We can go back through Baylor's history and see guys that had to play early and gotten beaten up.
Ryan Miller,
Ryan Miller. I mean, you go back to
Xavier Newman had to play right away.
I was talking with Joe DeWoody's dad. He was on the board talking about it when Joe came in and played, and Joe started at center. Nick Pace was in that class. He started as a true freshman at tackle and then disappeared. His shoulder, his back, all those things get injured really easily if you're not strong enough. And we can go back and even talk about Jeff Levy, who was a coach. He played at OU. And one day I was out at practice and Levy bent over and there's a big hole in his back, a big scar. And I said, I was like, Jeff, what is that? And he said, football's a cruel game. And he had, surgery on his vertebrae. That happens for O-linemen quite a bit. So, that's the one thing, Tate Williams, Ryan Lingal, Connor Heffernan, they're going to develop. But when you look at Romero, Noel, Cisco Caston, all those guys, those guys are projectable, making plays, but they're also big, long, great athletes.
Yeah, and speaking of one of those athletes, Brian, Romario Noel, am I saying his name right?
Romario.
Romario. I want to make sure we get that right. But Romario Noel is official. The first, and there's actually two we will get to, but Romario Noel, the first announced by Baylor football defensive back, becomes signee number 1. So number 1 of 17 is down the safety out of Cypress, Texas. Grayson, what can you tell us about Mr. Noel?
Well, it's extremely fitting because Romario is one of two guys who has been committed to this class since Rule was here. So he's a guy who was right at the beginning there. So it's very fitting that he's the first guy that's officially locked in. And when you look at Romario, I had the pleasure of actually going and watching him play this year against Bridgeland, who is a team that's looking for a state championship. And if you want to know one thing about Romario that really stands out, it is the fact that Bridgeland, who probably has the best passing offense in the entire state, refused to throw the ball at him. They just refuse. They look the other way every time, and the reason is because his frame, his size, his speed, he's intimidating. So why throw to his side of the field? I think he's a guy who could come into Baylor and start off as a cornerback. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Derek Thomas, the former Baylor Bear, who obviously was here in 2018. He grad transferred from Temple. He reminds me a lot of him. I think that Romario has a little more polish to his game currently than Derek did, but I think there's a chance that he could grow into just a massive 6'3", 210-pound cornerback. Or, guys, he could even flip up and be 6'5", 220 pounds and play linebacker, safety. There's so much flexibility to his game, and that's the reason why I know he's one of Brian's favorites.
Oh, yeah. We got to see him at Prime 21 camp, and, Pac-Man Jones threw the lockdown chain on him, playing cornerback. I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. He locked down people. I mean, all the class of 21, he locked them down at that camp. And him being in his rating is so far off. He committed to Baylor early. No one looked at him again. He got the Texas offer and never wavered.
Pretty impressive. And like his size, very athletic. And Sean Bell, you mentioned, Grayson, that he'd been committed for a while, and I'd completely forgot about him being committed to Matt Rule back in the day. But Sean Bell had a tweet just basically saying, finally, he's official. So Romario Noel, signee number 1. And as we've just been talking here in the last couple minutes, a couple more have already rolled in as well. So let's keep it moving. Also joining the class, one of the rare non-Texas players joining this class out of St. Louis, Missouri, and DeSmet High School. Defensive tackle, Dakota Doyle Robinson. Guys, what can you tell us about Dakota Doyle Robinson?
Well, the first thing that you look at when you see Dakota is there was a video of him doing a backflip at 280 pounds is what he looks like. I mean, it's just remarkable to see that kind of explosiveness out of him. And you watch his film and you can see the qualities that he has. He's a guy who can get after the quarterback a little bit. He's pretty stable on the interior of the defensive line. He's not moved easily, which I think is a huge quality that this staff is looking for. You have to be able to get off blocks, but also have to just not be driven backwards to allow linebackers to get through and make plays. I think he's a good athlete, a guy who has to put on even more weight if he's going to play on the interior of this defensive line. But he's a guy who I think has nice potential, and he was a guy who Baylor targeted pretty early when this staff got here. And so I think he's a good addition. He'll give them a nice defensive pop at a position of need.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the D-line, right? You need to get a little bit of help on the D-line. So how about going and grabbing a player out of Missouri, and not only grabbing a player out of Missouri, but holding on to him for months and months and months, because he's been committed for a while there. So Dakota Doyle Robinson, lineman, he is signee number 2. Yep. You want some more presents here on Christmas morning? You want some more official names? How about signee number 3? And this one, out of our backyard, we could just go jump on 35 and go visit him real quick, about an hour's time. This was one of the newer additions to the class, part of that foursome at wide receiver. Shoemakers, Monterey Baldwin. This was a kid we had on just last week, right after he made his commitment. So local flavor here. Shoemaker wide receiver, Monterey Baldwin. What do you guys like about him?
I mean, the first thing you look at with the tape, the first 2 plays, why is he getting more attention? That was the one thing I didn't understand. And it is, you get overlooked in Killeen for some reason. But his first 2 plays, touchdown, long touchdown, and then second play, hurdles a guy and still makes the play for a touchdown. Right there, you look at the balance, the speed.
Look at the speed right now, Brian.
Yeah.
Looking at that speed.
What are we missing? And then all of a sudden, we get a hold of the coach that threw the combine on. He ran a 4.49 laser. Whoa, what are we missing?
Yeah.
And we keep saying now he replaced Roderick Daniels. He's taller than Roderick Daniels. He's heavier than Roderick Daniels and faster than Roderick Daniels. I don't know. I don't know what. I mean, to me,
COVID.
It's COVID.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead. I mean, just call it COVID. I mean, then nobody could go see him, and you see it on tape, and the numbers there back it up. But unbelievable player.
Yeah, the issue really for him was the fact that at that camp that Brian's mentioning, I think he was 5'8", 154 pounds.
He was 5'9".
Okay, well, at that time, 5'9". But anyways, he's grown a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and people don't understand that, you know, you give him time to put on weight. He's at least 160. I'd probably put him more at 165, 170. And I think Brian mentioned a lot of people want to compare him to Roderick. I don't view them as the same kind of player, honestly. I think Monterey's a better route runner, probably better straight line speed. I view Roderick as more of a guy who catches the ball out of the backfield and makes guys miss. That's kind of his forte. So different guys, different players. I think they both serve a purpose, though.
Good Lord, look at that highlight right there, man.
So fast, so quick. And honestly, he led Shoemaker to a great year.
Yeah, Shoemaker, not a team that we'd always talk about. I mean, like, I covered that district doing midway games up until this year, so I got to see a lot of Shoemaker. They have definitely been a program that's started to go on the rise, but absolutely Monterey Baldwin's been a big part of what Toby Foreman and company have been able to put together. And, 8-3 overall, and got a kind of a tail kicking at the hands of DeSoto last week. But who doesn't? Hey, I was impressed they put up 32 on DeSoto. So that was pretty impressive. But we're not done there. Monterey Baldwin, number 3. And how about a big one for number 4? A very big one for number 4. Arguably the best player in the class. I think some people could make that case. You'll hear from him later on this afternoon on SicEm365 Radio. Lindale running back Jordan Jenkins is officially a Baylor Bear.
Well, if he's not the best player in the class, I can definitely say this. He has had the best high school career of anyone in this class. I mean, his year this season has been remarkable. And his run during the playoffs, he's got nearly 3,000 yards rushing and 50 touchdowns. Oh, there they are.
Look at that.
There.
Look at that stat line, folks. That is Jordan Jenkins out of Lindale, the newest Baylor running back signee. Just made it official. 50 touchdowns. Nearly 3,000 yards.
It's unbelievable. He had a 9-touchdown game a few weeks ago in the playoffs, and he'll be playing Argyle in the state championship. And power, guys, power, speed, explosiveness. I know a lot of people talked about him early as a unicorn-type prospect. He ran a 4.49 at Baylor camp at 6'1", 205 pounds. He's now up to at least 6'1", 210, 215. Just special, guys. That is the words I have for him.
One of the coaches, we were at the NLA camp. I mean, no, Grayson, you didn't make that one, but up in Dallas. And he was a coach in that district. And he leaned over to me and he goes, I don't know who gets him. I just want him out of our district. Get him gone. He goes, he wears me out every single game.
Yeah.
He goes, no matter what we do, we can just, everybody on the defense goes after him. It doesn't matter. He gets his. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's done all year.
Yeah, he is a special player. As you guys mentioned, going to be playing for a state championship. And those are some Ryan Lingyell right there. We'll get some Jordan Jenkins up. But speaking of Ryan Lingyell, perfect timing because he has now become official as well. So these are, we had to wait about 20 minutes or so for these things to start kind of rolling in. And then once they do, they roll in. So Monterey Baldwin official, go ahead.
Look at Lingyell on the board here, on the wakeboard. What? That's 6'5", 275 pounds on doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do that. I never could do that. And I'm half his size. So that's an athlete. That's a big kid. I mean, the one thing about Lingyell, he's got a little bit, time to grow. But he's got the frame. He's got the feet. Let him grow for a couple years, and then let's see him on the field.
Yeah.
It's one of the things we were talking about. We'll get man strength, get him in the weight room, 2 to 3 years, ready to go. Let's not push somebody like that in. Same thing, Tate Williams. The same thing, Connor Heffernan. Once those letters of intent come in as well, you want to make sure that these guys get strong enough so they're not injured and hurt themselves or hurt their development during their early in their career.
Yeah, the last thing we want to see is them throwing offensive linemen to the Wolves, and we talked about that with Xavier Newman, who played as a freshman admirably, but would have really benefited had he not had to have played right away.
Definitely, and I will say this about Lingyel. Any addition on the offensive line for Baylor is a big one. And Lingyel is a guy who you go and watch the film and you see a guy who does have some weight gain and some strength that he needs to add, but he's got a great frame, a good base, and he's a guy who does consistently move people, even though I don't think he's at his peak as far as his strength goes. And if you look at Dallas Jesuit, that's a team that's been very productive. They struggled a little bit this year, but last year they were running over people. And Lingyel was a big part of that.
See that block right there?
He's got some nasty in him. That's what you want. I mean, that's what you're looking for too. I mean, all these guys have some nasty in them when they get attached to you, and that's what you want them to finish off, and they do.
So Ryan Lingyel not finishing off this Baylor class, but keeping the momentum going as these letters of intent keep rolling in. And let's continue on here. George Ranch wide receiver Javon Gibson is officially a Baylor Bear. Javon Gibson joining Monterey Baldwin as a couple of receivers now that have signed so far in this 2021 recruiting class. Still a couple more to go, but what do you guys like about what he brings to the table?
Yeah, I think Javon Gibson might have the highest ceiling of any wide receiver prospect they have in this class. He is a great athlete. He can beat you over the top, but I still see some qualities in him that make me think he's raw, which is, I think, very important at the wide receiver position to see that he has a high ceiling and the opportunity to grow and continue to mature. I got to see him at the All-American Combine in January, and he ran a 4.5 at that Combine, and Brian and I can attest to this. That is the slowest event you could possibly go to.
Do they run on mud or something?
Yeah, no, literally, you're running in mud. Guys that run 4.4s run 4.7s there consistently. It is weird.
It's ridiculous, that turf in the Alamo Dome.
Yeah.
It's slow. It's like they add sand to it.
Do they still have all the crickets in the Alamo Dome? That's all I remember from my last trip, which was like 12 years ago.
They have more than crickets in there now.
Oh, do they? Great.
You got bats and birds. We saw that at the Texas Bowl where there's a bat flying above us. We're like, hey, great.
Yeah. Lovely. But that's Grayson's home territory. We better be careful here.
Yeah, be careful, guys. Lots of playoff games are being played there this weekend.
None of you get bit by a bat, please.
No. This last thing that we need in this world right now is somebody getting by a bat. But yeah, so Javon Gibson, nice size on him. I mean, obviously he's going to be a kid that puts on weight, but he's got the height that you like. And already you notice a difference in the two wide receivers who have signed. You look at a guy like Javon Gibson, 6'3". He'll probably add 20 pounds at the minimum. And then you look at who signed right before him in Monterey Baldwin, totally different type of a wide receiver.
Yeah, and that speaks to Larry Fedora's offense. He likes guys on the outside that are big and long and rangy and can go make plays down the field, but he also loves his slot guys, those guys that can run sweeps, that can go out on screens, that can beat you vertically down the field. He really likes that as well. So lots of different body types in this class, and I think that's a good thing. It adds to the versatility that they're trying to build.
I agree with that. I mean, the one thing about Gibson, we got to meet Gibson. This has been such a weird year. I mean, Grayson and I usually hit camps.
Right.
Junior days, all that. It's not happened. We had one junior day. We met Javon. We met Cam Bonner. We met all those guys during the very first junior day, and then it was all dead. Mm-hmm. Done with it. So hope those days come back pretty soon and we can do that again, because right now it'd be like 3 weeks. It'd be another junior day in 3 weeks. So it's something that we could go ahead and see these kids, and you get to meet these kids, and he's a really good kid, a really good family, and you want to see that in all these different athletes that they're signing. You don't want the guys that we've had the guys that are turds. Let's just go ahead and say it. Come to our videos, and you're like, you're hoping that guy doesn't sign with Baylor because you just don't want to deal with him.
Grayson's told me some stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them that we were just like, wow, that's just not a good kid,
right? Yeah.
Or he's misguided right now, which is not calling him a good kid, but say he's misguided, and you're just like, that's going to be a handful whoever gets him, and they have been. So Gibson, great kid, came out there. His family came out. It's really funny. You'll watch these parents that are really involved with their sons in this, and they'll coach them into the interview. And that's really great to see.
Yeah.
And he's one of the ones that his parents are going, okay, say this, don't say this. Don't say don't say huh, don't say yeah.
I need to talk to me.
Same here. I mean, I'm sitting there going half the time, but that's what that kid did, and really great to see.
Well, I like that Baylor, last February, it was the puppets. Was that the first or second signing day they did that? That was that was this time last year that they did the puppets, and people lost their minds. Imagine that. But not doing all of that this year. They're just kind of going with, what would you even call the theme? It's kind of person over player, I think, is what they're highlighting. And they're putting a little line to each player that's signed so far. So it's kind of interesting. For example, Ryan Lingiel, Texan to the core. That's it. That's his description. Javon Gibson, big play Gip.
I like Jordan Jenkins, touchdown machine.
Yeah, Jordan Jenkins, touchdown machine. Monterey Baldwin, blink and he's gone, was his title.
Wrong.
Yeah. Dakota Doyle, living the dream, was his as well. So, and they're putting out the cover athlete thing in their graphics and like magazines, the Baylor magazine with their picture on the cover, and then even like little inserts that as though they were written, and it looks good. It looks good. It's not the puppets. It's definitely not that. It's a much more low-key approach, but it looks sharp, looks solid, and looks nice.
Yeah.
I think they're taking a little much more low-key to this. I mean, obviously, we're doing a signing day show, and I'm not sure Baylor is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not sure they're doing one.
Okay.
I mean, they might be doing like a recap or something at the end of the day, but they're not doing the announcements, to my knowledge, like they have in the past. I mean, I don't know if the reason. But I mean, it could be a COVID related thing. I mean, we're socially distancing here. So, y'all pretty much have 6 foot apart. But
Grayson keeps trying to sneak closer to me, but I'm moving the other direction.
You got to watch the footsies with Grayson.
Yeah. No, we're all good, and it's good to see these rolling in as that's 5 or 6 players now out of the 17. So they're already about a third of the way through their 2021 class signing, and so far, coaches seem to be pretty happy. So Dakota Doyle responding to his "Living the Dream" tweet by saying "Living the Dream," and so that was a very fitting title for him as well. So Monterey Baldwin, Jordan Jenkins, they're in the fold. Also, Ryan Lingiel's in the fold. Javon Gibson's in the fold. And who am I missing? Dakota Doyle's in the fold. And Romario Noel. So there's 6 guys that have signed so far. And these are going to kind of just be, depending on what your schedule was. And we thought Jenkins was going to sign late, right? But he went ahead and just nipped it in the bud, I guess.
Well, and that's what typically happens is guys schedule their ceremony for later, but typically the faxes or however they're doing it nowadays, they're sending in their signature, through mobile devices and things like that. So typically they start coming out early in the morning, and that's exactly what's happening here for this Baylor class. And we'll see how many more come in as we continue to move forward.
Yeah, so of the SicEm365.com ratings, you had a handful of players with site giving them 4-star rankings, attributing 4-star rankings. Kyron Drones, he was also a national 4-star from the services. Tate Williams, Jordan Jenkins, Tevin Williams, Jackie Marshall, who I know that you guys like a lot, and he's kind of, we're going to see, we'll talk about him obviously whenever he makes it official, but the young man out of Louisiana, Devin Lemire, who we'll hear from, Grayson talked to whenever he makes it official, as well as Tyrone Brown, who's a player that I'm very excited to see out of Orange as well. So how do you feel like and I feel like, every team believes that their class should be ranked higher or individual players should be rated higher or whatever the case may be. But how do you feel, and this is harder because of what you guys were mentioning earlier, the no camps, so you don't have the 24/7 guys that are out there in like Baton Rouge watching all the top prospects or whatever. How do you feel nationally this class has been recognized? Are there a couple of individual slights? Are there a couple guys that maybe you're like, it's a little bit too high? I don't know about that.
Yeah, so there definitely are. And I think if you look at our ratings, majority of it is the guys that are high 3 stars are basically 4 stars in most people's opinions. And as you look at, most of the guys that have a 4-star are very close in the national to being a 4-star. But if you look at some of the guys that are higher rated, guys in particular, Devin Lemire, Tyrone Brown, Romario Noel. Those are guys who are severely underrated by the national recruiting landscape, and I don't really know why. Devin Lemire is outside the top 150 in the state of Texas, and so is Tyrone Brown, and that is just, it makes no sense.
Why. They didn't do their homework. And I've argued with some of the national guys at 24/7. I mean, me and Ashley and Cole worked there, right? We did that. I know the game that was played.
Yeah.
And if you don't have somebody pushing for these guys to be higher, not happening.
Yeah, I constantly see every year there's a couple cases where a recruiting reporter will jump on after a guy gets his 4-star and he's like, man, I pushed so hard for this guy at headquarters, and typically it's a blue blood website that does it too when they do it. But yeah, I mean, that does come into play, and the lack of camps and all that certainly had an effect, and the lack of season for some guys as well. I mean, the young man, Sam Carroll, he's not a member of Baylor's class. He was up until about a week ago. He's instead going to go to Washington State. I'm very happy that he was able to have something come together. But, you know, a guy like him, for example, he didn't even play this year because New Mexico shut down football. So that also, you know, definitely complicates things. I did see just a second ago that Tate Williams, big offensive lineman, announced that he is going to be signing at 10 a.m. So I doubt we're going to be in line with him at 10 a.m., 2 hours and 15 minutes from now. We might be, kind of depends on how this drags out, but I'm just thinking we probably need to go ahead and get his interview in, because we got a couple of them that we want to get to before we sign off today. And since he's going to be waiting until 10 a.m., let's go ahead and hear from Tate Williams, because we have no doubts about him putting pen to paper here in just a little while. So Grayson did a great job, and you'll hear a bunch more this afternoon. I know Smokey's got Kyron drones lined up and things like that. We're going to have a bunch this afternoon. But Grayson did have the opportunity to talk to 3 key members. None of the 3 have signed just yet, but as I just mentioned, Tate Williams, big offensive lineman out of Wall, he will be signing at 10 a.m. And Grayson had a chance to talk to Tate Williams about signing with the Baylor Bears.
This is Grayson Grunhoefer with SicEm365.com, and I'm here with Baylor signee Tate Williams out of Wall High School. Tate, you're officially signed with Baylor. How excited are you just to come to an end with your recruitment and be officially a Baylor Bear?
You know, it's always been a big dream of mine to play college ball, and it's all kind of coming to life now that I finally signed the paperwork, and it's kind of surreal, but I'm extremely excited to be a part of the program that Baylor puts forth, and ready to get going in Waco.
Yeah, and you've been committed to Baylor for a while now, but can you kind of just do a little bit of a flashback, because your recruitment took off really quickly and very fast. Just talk about your recruitment a little bit and just kind of the process in general.
So the first people to ever reach out to me was the University of Texas in my junior season, and I didn't hear a whole lot from them, but they reached out to me and told me that they were interested, and you know, that was about it. And I mean, I didn't really think much of it, thinking, well, maybe it's just, I kind of thought it was fake at first, and then April came along, and ACU started contacting me, and I had an offer from them, and that was my first offer that I had, and it was the only offer I had for a while. But James Blanchard, when he still worked at Baylor, he was the one that first get in contact with me from Baylor, and he started talking to me about how that they really liked me and what I was doing, and he got me on board with some of the other coaches here, and I started talking to them, and he said they were hesitant to offer at first because I didn't have any other offers. Nobody really knew about me, and it's hard to convince the donors and people like that to do things. And so he kind of worked his way around and kind of got me out there. And I kind of owe that to him, really. And he put me out on the recruiting scene. And I ended up, within a week, I had 7 or 8 offers within a week from all over the country. And it was crazy how fast it blew up. And I was on the phone for 3 to 4 hours a day, every day for 2 weeks, I think. And, you know, when I'd been waiting on that offer from Baylor, just because I really respect Coach Blanchard, and I really enjoyed talking to all the coaches there, and they just seemed to, my personality matched theirs. And I like the program that they had the year before. And then, you know, this year it kind of struggled a little bit, but I mean, new coaching staff, COVID, everything else is, I mean, what else can you expect from it? But, you know, Baylor really stuck out to me among the other schools that I had the opportunity to go to. No disrespect to them, but Baylor was my top choice for me personally.
Yeah, and you committed the day after you got the offer, right? Wasn't it? It was very quickly after.
It was the day after, yes, sir.
That's awesome, man. And so I know you had a great relationship with James Blanchard, of course, but as the process kind of got moving forward and you were committed, who were the other coaches that you built a really good relationship with?
Coach Nance for sure, and Coach McGuire. And then me and Coach Wickline get along pretty well. He's got that same kind of old man, get up in your face kind of mentality that I'm used to around here. I mean, a lot of the people that I've talked to or that I've grown up around have that same kind of personality that he does, and I really like that about him. And I enjoy talking to him, and he's got that competitive spirit to him, and it just seems like he always wants the best for anybody he's working with, so he's going to push him to that limit. And that's something that I'd want in a coach personally. And you know, Coach McGuire, I really like talking to him. He's a pretty level-headed guy, and especially Coach Nance. He's always fun to talk to. But yeah.
So the offensive line this year had its struggles, definitely. And so it's an area that is for sure trying to be addressed by the staff. But I guess, what have you heard from Coach Wickline on that? And just kind of what are his expectations for you coming in? And I know pretty good offensive line class with you and Ryan and Connor, but I know the expectations have to be pretty high.
Yes, sir. He has had a couple conversations with me about coming in. When I'm coming in, he said anybody that he has coming in, he doesn't want them to expect to be a red shirt, because that makes you just kind of slack off your true freshman year. He said you come in, especially with this offensive line this year. He said he's looking for the best there is, and he wants anybody that's coming in to come in with a work ethic like they're going to be able to start. And he said, if you put forth the work and you end up being good enough, you could start your freshman year. And he said he's told that to me, Connor, and Ryan. And I think you know, with the right attitude and if you're persistent with it, and especially with me, because running our offense, I have no background to this traditional offense. We don't even have a traditional pass set in our playbook. So it's going to be a big learning curve for me, but I think I can get a handle of it. I'm normally a pretty quick learner, and so I'm looking forward to being able to learn something new.
Yeah, and I know we've talked a little bit about this. Are you still thinking guard is probably where you're going to fit, at least at the beginning at Baylor?
I think so. Coach Wickline at first probably thought that I was going to be a center, because he liked my frame for the center position, but he ended up, I think he's sticking with Connor at the center. But I think he's seeing me possibly being a guard as things move forward.
Okay. And do you see yourself fitting that pretty well? Do you feel comfortable with anywhere on the offensive line, really?
Yes, sir. I've played guard and tackle throughout high school, and I've liked guard more. I feel like it fits me a little better, just because I can get off the ball pretty quick, and I can get to the second level, and moving laterally, I think I'm fairly good at. So pulling's not ever an issue for me. And I don't know. I think playing guard specifically is better for my abilities. So yeah, I think I'll fit in there.
I know watching your film, Tate, I mean, you play with a mean streak. You absolutely do. You finish plays really well. Where do you get that from, and why? Take me through just kind of your normal play and what you're thinking, because it looks like you find a guy and it's like, all right, it's going to be him or me winning. One of us is going to end up on the ground.
Well, so my sophomore year, I mean, I kind of play with this attitude that, you know, just got to make your block, and once you get there, just hold them until the ball gets by you, and then you're good, right? And, you know, it was just that, you know, whatsoever kind of play. And we played Brock in the third round of playoffs. And there was a kid, I don't know if you heard of Baylor Cup.
Yeah,
he went to A&M, and we played against him, and we're watching his film, and every single play he's coming off the ball and trying to put somebody on their back. And my dad showed me his film, I think beginning of the season last year sometime, and he's like, why don't you come off the ball like this? Like, why don't you try this out? Like, come off the ball and just try to lay somebody out every single play. You don't have to be dirty about it. Just play the game, but play it hard. And I was like, all right. And so I don't remember what game it was, but coming into it, I was just, I came in and I just tried that, every single person I got a hold of, I was trying to put them on the ground, and I just stuck with it from there. And I guess it worked out for me. And you started to realize that's a whole lot more fun than just maintaining your block, is whenever you can kind of show off your abilities as an offensive lineman, which, I mean, a lot of times there's not a whole lot you can show off there, but that's probably one of the best feelings in the world, is putting somebody on the ground and feeling the breath just come out of them. It's a cool deal.
That's awesome, man. I know this year y'all had a pretty good year, 8-4, you know, as a team. You had losses to really good teams as well. I mean, it wasn't like you were losing to bad teams. But what did you see specifically in your game that you felt like took a big jump from maybe the beginning of the season to the end, and maybe just some things that you're still striving to work at before you get to Baylor?
Like me specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I definitely need to work on my weight gain in general, and especially my strength and conditioning, because I've never really been the strongest guy on the field. It's just my quickness is made up for what I don't have in strength, and I think I need to get a lot stronger. I need to get heavier and still maintain my speed. And I think that's what's going to be able to put me over the top if I can continue to grind it out. Another thing probably to work on would be the pass set and learning how to be a part of a more traditional offense. And I think that'd probably be the biggest thing overall for me.
And what are you at right now, Tate, height and weight wise?
I'm 6'4", 270.
Okay. And I know last time we talked, you had told me you probably weren't early enrolling, right? Is that still the case?
Yes, sir. I'm planning. I'm not going to end up early enrolling. I'm a senior on the basketball team. I've been with this team since 7th grade, and I'm going to stick with it and be there for those guys. I kind of view myself as a leader on that team. And, you know, me just up and leaving, I think would be kind of hurtful to a lot of people, and would disappoint a lot of people that have been looking up to me for a while. And I think it'd be best for me to finish out my senior season of basketball, and then track season as well. Track is something I'm looking to do in college as well. And I'm looking to try to hopefully go all the way. Things go my way in track, and get a couple state titles in the shot and disc before I leave high school.
Awesome. Have you talked to Baylor about potentially doing that, playing both?
Well, yes, sir. I talked to Coach Aranda and Coach Wickline are okay with me doing track if I'm able to score points for the team. And they said they just have to see how it plays out. Coach Wickline wants me throwing 60 in the shot this year and over 180 in the disc. And I hit 180 during the Corona when it just started at the end of track season last year. And it was 181.9 is what we ended up measuring. And then in the shot, I think my best was like 53.6 or something like that during Corona. But, you know, I've gotten a lot stronger, a lot more coordinated since then. And I think it's only up from here, hopefully.
Great. So in your 2021 class, are there any guys that you've gotten close to that are coming, you know, going to Baylor with you that you've maybe talked to the most, or that you've, I guess, just built a relationship with?
Yes, sir. Me and Connor Heffernan have talked a lot. He came to one of my games, and I ended up being able to come to one of his. And I've talked to Ryan Lingle as well. We've talked. Me, him, and Connor have a little group chat on Snapchat, and we talk about some of the stuff going on with Baylor football, and I mean just everyday things in general. And Connor's the only one I've actually been able to meet in person. And we talked to I talked to Javon Gibson a lot. We kind of snap back and forth and have a conversation every now and then. He seems like a pretty good guy.
Awesome. What when you've watched Baylor this year, what are some things that you've seen and maybe things that you feel like you can help, or just that you think, you'd like to see Baylor even get better at while you're there?
I think being able to maintain their defensive intensity in the second half, because, watching the OU game, I wasn't expecting a whole lot just from, injuries and COVID and everything. And I mean, I turned on the game and I was like, well, we'll see what happens. And ended up holding OU to 3 points in the first half till the very end. And I thought that was crazy. And then I think everybody just got kind of tired at the end of the game. But I really think that the defensive intensity, and especially being able to score on offense when you have the opportunity to, I think it's little things, and that game goes to Baylor's way easy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tate. This has been Tate Williams. He is a new 2021 signee in the Baylor class. And Tate, before we go, do you have anything you want to say to Baylor Nation?
I'm ready to get down to Waco and tear it up in the big leagues.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
So there you go. There's Tate Williams. He will be signing officially in a couple hours or so. But while we won't be on air at that time, we know he's signing. So we went ahead and played that for you. Grayson, really nice job. Zoom's a nice touch as well, that the folks out there can actually see him, and got some big old arms on him. He's obviously going to put on some more weight once he gets here. But that was a fun conversation. So hopefully you enjoyed that. That was Tate Williams, who will make it official later on today, but he's going to be a done deal. And right now, the done deals: Ryan Langiel, Jordan Jenkins, Monterey Baldwin, Javon Gibson, Dakota Doyle Robinson, and Romario Noel. Those are your 6 of 17 signees. We know there's a player like Williams or 2 that are going to be doing it later today. So really, you kind of got about 9 or so of the 17 that are confirmed as of right now. But guys, there was something that he really said that was interesting, and that was the fact that he's only gotten to meet one player in person from this recruiting class. Like, that might have been something that other people just sort of, passed by and maybe didn't think twice about. But for me, I think about all of the recruiting weekends that you would typically have. You would typically, Grayson, have like the one big recruiting weekend at some point in the season that you really build up towards, and it's typically a really big opponent, and you want to make it as good as possible. But they couldn't do that this year, obviously. Guys could like kind of come and, I guess, go to a game or something, but there wasn't like let's tour the facilities and let's show you your professors and all of that. That's just wild to me. He's met one player from this class in person.
Yeah, and the only reason he met him was because they went to each other's games just at a certain time. But I will say that the biggest consistent theme when I actually talked to the recruits about knowing other commits is the fact that there was no official visit. You do get to meet guys at games and at various times and weekends, but that official visit is really where you build a bond with your class and where you're able to meet them, kind of outside the realm of, you're with your parents or you're, hanging out and just kind of casually meeting someone. Official visit, you're spending a lot of time with people that you're going to be in the class with. So it's tough for these guys for sure. But at the end of the day, I think they have a group chat. They've been able to communicate some. But yeah, the in-person meeting is going to be interesting when some of theyese guys really enroll.
Yeah, and that's sort of, earlier, Craig, you were mentioning about how Allen has 35 people and 25 people. And our good friend Jason Howell there with TexAgs, that, Baylor guy, he just sent a picture of Cooper Lands just sitting there waiting to sign at Denton Geyer.
Oh, yeah.
He's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Just dead, just waiting and waiting. So that one's coming across here pretty soon because he's at the ceremony getting ready to do that right now at Denton Geyer. But again, you're talking running through 60 kids.
Right.
So he can then go, here's my 10 seconds.
Here's Ashley Summers. She's playing volleyball at Quinnipiac. And then, at least he's like in the middle, because I guess if they go alphabetically, L's right there in the middle. It would really stink to be the kid with like the Z last name and have to be 60 out of 60 the signing. But there's a graphic that Armstrong just put up. There you go. The early enrollees. So Javon Gibson's official now. Lemire will be later. Drones is official. They haven't sent out the graphic just yet.
His dad posted a tweet that they're signed and sealed.
Yeah, so that's just not come down officially from Baylor just yet. Brown's not yet signed. Neither is Bean or Heffernan. But those are the 6 early enrollees for Baylor football. And how important, guys, we know with just the decisions that were made over the last couple of days with John Lovett and Charlie Brewer, we're seeing some of that change, although we're kind of the opinion that there may not be a whole lot of wholesale change. It might just be a couple of guys and maybe 1 or 2 others, but not necessarily like this mass exodus as though, some thought might happen due to, maybe one of their worst performances. Everybody kind of overreacts. But those 6 guys, how important is that they will be arriving to campus early, and especially in a year like this one where there should actually be spring ball, we think, or we believe there will be spring ball. So just how important is that for these 6 right here to get on campus?
Well, it's massive any year, but yes, you're exactly right with, this staff trying to transition and build the culture that they're trying to instill to get more guys that they recruited on campus is always going to be a plus. That's always going to be a great culture builder. And I think the guys that they're bringing in are guys who I believe are integral parts of this class. You look at Kyron Drones, the quarterback. It's always important to get the quarterback on campus as an early enrollee. Connor Heffernan, just because offensive line, Baylor needs bodies to practice during the spring and needs guys who can come in and potentially make an impact. That could leave room for Connor to potentially play early because he's early enrolling. A few wide receivers with Gibson and Bean as well. And then, of course, your defensive guys with Lemire and Tyrone Brown. Those are 2 guys who I don't think will have to play a ton next year, especially Tyrone Brown. But I think them getting on campus and showing what they can do and starting, like I said, to build that culture is always a positive.
I think Lemire's got a chance to get on the field.
He could, yeah.
Because safety is a spot that's not that deep. And
also your safeties now are kind of getting older, right? I mean, Morgan and Woods are both they're going to be seniors next year.
Senior, whichever one it is.
Junior, senior, yeah. But still, I mean, they're not the little puppies that they were what it seems like yesterday, practically.
Yeah, and who backed them up this year?
Exactly. Yeah.
It will be Lemire probably.
Yeah.
He's got a chance to definitely move into that 2 deep. So, Brian, I would agree with you. Of those guys early enrolling, he is definitely one to keep an eye on. And whenever he does sign, I know we'll have an interview with him as well. Great kid. He's actually probably the one I've gotten to know the best during this recruitment cycle, just because living in Austin, I've got to see him in person a ton. Very impressed by him, and a guy who, like Brian said, as an early enrollee, could make a huge impact on this class as time progresses.
So we have gone a little while now without announcing a new signee, because it's been a little while since they've announced a new signee. We had the 6 guys that we've already covered, and a couple of players that are going to be signing, after we leave the airwaves that we've already told you about. But we got a new one now. We got a new one that is officially in the fold, and this one's going to make you guys very excited. Jackie Marshall, linebacker, Woo-hoo! East St. John High School out of Louisiana. I know that the website is very high on this young man out of the boot.
Yeah, and they should be, because Jackie Marshall had a fantastic season this year. 6'2", 230, might even be bigger than that, to be honest. But you watch his film, very first play of his film, probably the best play I've seen of a Baylor commit, I think, this year. He returns a punt, 70 yards. First of all, why is he lined up back there to return a punt? Second of all, he runs by everyone. It was so impressive to see his athleticism on display. It is the reason why Baylor is recruiting him as an interior linebacker. But to me, I think there's always the possibility that he could also play the jack position, on this defense.
Just get him on the field.
Yeah.
This kid is special athletically, and he's a humble kid. It's one of those things you look at and you go, how did everyone miss on this guy too? And he's not a grade risk. He's not anything. There's nothing wrong with him. Look, he's gosh. That's the one thing we were talking about last night. He's the most criminally underrated kid in this class. And it's just, Nobody went to see him. I'm just going to say it. They were lazy and didn't go see him. Didn't watch the tape on him. He signed. He committed to Baylor, and then no one else looked at him again. And it is really strange how this one slipped through and LSU didn't go after him, or somebody in the SEC. This is a prototypical linebacker in the SEC with speed, size, you name it. This kid has it.
Yeah, I'm liking the highlights that I'm seeing. There he is coming across and getting himself a nice little quarterback sack. And I've seen a few of those quarterback sacks already in his highlights, and some speed, and the return, as you mentioned. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Baylor a few years ago was known as an offensive juggernaut. They've become a defensive program, and I think everybody's pretty okay with that. Now, granted, we would all like to see a little bit more offense, and we should see some more offense next year, but there's something kind of fun about being defensive-minded and just playing nasty defense, and he should fit right in, I would think.
Yeah, and he kind of reminds me, and the reason why I say that linebacker position, that jack position really intrigues me, because he kind of reminds me a little bit of actually a Matt Rule recruit at Temple, and that's Hassan Reddick, which I think is kind of an interesting comparison. But Hassan 6'2", 6'1", around that, but this same kind of burst, same kind of knack for making big plays, and he can really play any linebacker position. This is a huge gift for this Baylor staff, and he's a guy who not only is he a great player, I think he also opens up the recruiting pipeline a little bit in Louisiana, which I think is going to be very important for this staff.
And this is one of the kids we had a hard time getting a hold of. And at one point, you're just sitting there going, please don't disappear.
Yeah.
Or just decommit. This is the kind of guy that you figure sooner or later that somebody's going to pop up there.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah, it is. And East St. John, that's a great program. Great athletes coming out of there. I believe, Tweety Carter is Vital.
I don't know.
That area, and then also, Rico.
Yeah, he's from that area.
Well, Butler's from that area too, Jared Butler.
Yeah. So this is not an area that people do not, they don't recruit. And
beats us.
I don't get it. And that's, again, we would have seen him. If this was, been a normal year, Grayson, I'd been at the New Orleans camp for, either Under Armour or Nike, but it wasn't a normal year. People didn't see him, and they missed.
Well, let's be glad they missed, right? Because we get to see him play for Baylor for the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the case may be.
Right, exactly. And I wanted to mention, Brian talking about how underrated he is, and it's pretty crazy because you look at his offer list, and it's not bad at all.
I was looking at it. Yeah, there's some schools on there.
Miami, Arizona, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Texas Tech. There's some good schools, but I think this guy is definitely one who LSU missed on. You know what I mean? A program like that where if they had offered, it's hard to say he wouldn't have gone there. But it looks like he's locked in, he's signed, and Baylor's getting a great defensive prospect.
He was somebody early on that going back to what you were saying, Brian, as far as, you're kind of just waiting for the shoe to drop and somebody like an LSU roll in or a Bam, or, just somebody that's going to sway him. And they held on, so he's official. Jackie Marshall, linebacker out of East St. John High School in Louisiana, is officially a Baylor Bear. That is the 7th letter of intent that has come across, and really an asterisk next to that, it's 8. We're waiting on the Kyron Drones graphic because, according to his father on Twitter, he's already signed. So there's really 8 of the 17 with a couple to wait later today. So still a little over a handful of guys we're expecting here over the course of the next hour or so that will make it official.
Yeah, I'm not going to doubt his dad.
No, I think his dad's probably telling the truth. Yeah, I would think so. And I like his dad on Twitter. His dad's a good little follow.
Yeah, and I got to meet him. Brian and I both did after, what game was TCU game, I believe is what it was, where we got to talk to both of them after, and great people. A great leader, I think, Kyron, that is. And he's been the starting quarterback at Shadow Creek for 2 years now. Already has 1 state championship. And like I said, he's progressed to the second round of the playoffs, maybe looking to make championship number 2, which would be really impressive in 2 years. It's going to take a lot, though, to make it through that 6A bracket. But he's a very, very good player, great family, and coach's son, because his dad is actually a coach at Shadow Creek.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have, right, Brian?
Oh yeah, and the funniest thing is, I mean, his dad also coached at Galveston Ball a lot when I lived in Galveston, so it's sort of funny. There's some cross paths there, and I've had some cross paths from a couple of these different players.
You always have cross paths.
No, but it's crazy. No, it's crazy. The Cameron Bonner's mother and I worked together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the previous previous company I worked for, and she recognized me at the junior day, and I was like, oh gosh, it's funny because I knew Cam when Cam was a year old, and so when we had the the company picnic, there's Cam and Nakia and her husband as well. So it's a small world.
Yeah, it is, and it's. No offense, because I'm getting older. I feel it, but it's kind of weird, right, to see the kid you saw at the company picnic, and now you're reporting on him signing on signing day. That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I had the first the old felt old thing when one of my high school teammates' son came through about 10 years ago, and I was like, wow, I remember you, and you were born.
Turned into a heck of a player.
Yeah.
Well, I like that they're describing Jackie Marshall as the beast from the boot. That's a good little tagline for him. So he's official now. Is he a guy you think sees the field next year?
I do.
Yeah.
I think I don't know that he's sure thing to start. I will tell you though.
Well, especially at linebacker at Baylor, depending on what Terrell Bernard does.
Dylan
Doyle's back. Abram Smith's obviously a mainstay now at this point.
That's why I mentioned that jack position, because no one really, I think, put their stamp on that spot. I think it is open competition, open season, and I think Jackie Marshall's got a chance to come in. The only issue is him not early enrolling. Kind of takes a little bit of that time away, but he's got a shot, guys. I think there's a chance that Jackie could his ability to get after the quarterback gets him on the field.
So it's sorry, Brian, but I was looking at the notable alumni from Jackie Marshall's high school, and this is so signing day perfect. Like, you guys might remember Lewis Lips, who played for the Steelers back in the day. I certainly do. I had his trading cards. But this is the most perfect signing day alumni from Jackie Marshall's high school. And thank goodness Jackie Marshall was not the same type of signing day story. But Ryan Perilou. Does anybody remember the name Ryan Perilou?
Yeah.
And the debacle that was his recruitment and eventually signing with LSU and all of that. But I remember Texas and LSU on signing day. That was a big battle, and LSU won out. And then Perilou didn't really go on to do too much, but, man, he was a big-time recruit back then.
I mean, they could do a 30 for 30 on that guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know where he is now, and I hope he's doing okay, but, he didn't live up to the hype, and there's a lot of pressure on that guy.
Yeah, and he was a part of – it was like I remember it vividly because this is when I first started recruiting or following recruiters. It was early 2000s, and there was a big signing day where Texas was, like, on the – I mean, this was like back when they were winning national titles or in the chase, the early 2000s. And they had like a trio of guys that were supposed to be announcing on signing day. And it was Ryan Perilou, who they thought they were going to get. Fred Rouse, y'all may remember that name, big-time wide receiver who ended up going to Florida State. And there was a third member, and I want to say it was like a tight end or something. I can't remember, but they got 0 of them.
Yeah, they struck out on all three.
Yeah, but then you looked at it, Perilou didn't do anything, Rouse didn't do anything, and I can't remember the third guy. He might have, but...
Well, here's the thing about recruiting. It's an exact science.
Exactly right.
You don't know. I mean, there's so many things that can derail a kid's career. Mm-hmm. Whether it be grades, drugs, stupidity,
Yeah.
Whatever. Injuries. You can just constantly watch a kid, and you can see the downward spiral if they haven't started seeing the field like in 3 years. There's something, especially these high-rated guys, something is just not right. And then you also have the guys that, it's sad to watch, but it happens every year to every school. Doesn't matter. So guys like that, you can sit there and go, wow, what was it? And you can go back and find out what it was. And sometimes it's just entitlement and work ethic.
And I think that's why it's great that Baylor's highlighting person over player as kind of their theme to this class. And, I think every coach is going to talk today about how great their young men are and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, that's something that they're highlighting. Like, they're trying to make that like the official slogan almost of this recruiting class. So that was obviously very important. And hey, you listen to Dave Aranda enough, and this was the same way with Matt Rule. I mean, you know, they're not looking for choir boys or anything like that, but at the same time, that part of the person does matter. I mean, it's not something that you just kind of just say to say. I mean, for this staff, I think it's something that truly does matter.
Yeah, and it should. And I think based on the guys that I've gotten to meet in this class, and I'm sure Brian can attest to this as well, it's a lot of good kids. And so I get why that's a slogan for this staff, because it's just 100% true with these guys. Every single one I've gotten to meet has been nothing but a good guy. And that's not always the case, but I will say under Aranda it has been, and even under Rule, it was very much of the same when we were covering those classes. Just great kids, and it's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying is you're gonna run into the guys who have the entitlement, who have the issues. You can see it before. In Grayson, like we were talking about earlier, there's guys that we just like, yeah, we really hope that guy doesn't end up at Baylor, and so far those guys haven't. But we've seen the guys that before Grayson, come on board with us. Colt and I saw plenty that came in that were, you're like, whoa, a little edge.
You got a little edge to them. Yep.
Yeah, and most of them were fine, but if they didn't, they'd weed themselves out.
Oh yeah, that typically happens. Yeah, you're gonna weed yourself out. But I'm liking the kind of the character that's being put on display for this class, and the fact that they're highlighting that, I think is a good deal. So just in case you're joining us and you haven't been with us for the last hour or so, there are 7 official signees that Baylor has announced. They've got 17 commits, so 7 of the 17 are official. There's actually 8, but that's not official through Baylor's Twitter account just yet. But here you go. Here's the beautiful graphic that was put together by Cole Armstrong. Jack Armstrong and Jack hadn't shouted you guys out in a while. Y'all are in a food coma, I think. That's fine. But no, y'all are doing a great job. And they're putting these graphics up, and these graphics are amazing. Big shout out to Colt Barber and everybody who's helped put this thing together. But there's the class as we enter today. Kyron Drones, highlighted there, QB. He is signed, but Baylor hasn't announced it yet. But of those names you see on your screen, the ones that have signed so far, offensive lineman Ryan Langiel, running back Jordan Jenkins, wide receiver Monterey Baldwin, wide receiver Javon Gibson, defensive lineman Dakota Doyle Robinson, defensive back Romario Noel, and linebacker Jackie Marshall. Those are your signees so far.
Yeah, and it's a good start to the day for sure, and there's plenty more that are coming in and that we're just waiting on. I will say it looks like a lot of guys have their signing days ready to go, and so it looks like Baylor's going to be able to hang on to every single commit that they have. I'm really, at this point, not very concerned about any of them, and I think that's a great attribute to the relationships that this staff has built with these guys. And again, I think they're more than ecstatic about the class that they've put together. And I know just going through and evaluating it, they have great pieces on this 2021 class, great pieces to build on, I think, in February and through the transfer portal. This could be quite the coup for Baylor.
Yeah, I said over the weekend after the game was over with, the game we shall not talk about anymore. There's just no reason to. The season's over. But I was excited about the offseason. Like, I'm not typically excited. I don't look forward to the offseason, you know what I mean? But I was actually looking forward to the offseason probably for the first time since 2016, quite honestly, because we know how sideways that season got, and everybody by, the 6th loss in a row kind of wanted it to be over. This was different circumstances. Everybody was kind of beat down before it even started. But I was looking forward to the offseason, guys, because I knew there was going to be some turnover on the roster. And I was intrigued to see what that was going to be, especially when you knew that Charlie Brewer was going to be in the equation to some extent, and guys like John Lovett or Treston Ebner or whoever, but also just to see this staff recruit and bring in their guys and see what that kind of looks like. So this is exciting for multiple reasons, and there's a good chance that, don't know how many, don't want to put a number on it, but some of these guys signing today, you're going to see on the field next year.
Yeah, and one thing about change, change is hard for everybody. Mm-hmm. Change is hard for kids, especially during this pandemic. So you're going to see guys that make a change for their betterment.
Sure.
Betterment. And that's one thing we can see with Charlie and John and going off to another school and hopefully landing in another D1
sure.
or P5. And so, but Dave Aranda needs his guys in that locker room. He doesn't need guys who are going, well, we used to do it this way, and we're always going to do it this way. And I'm not saying that's Charlie or John, but that's in every organization. You have people who are set in their ways and don't move on. And when you get a new coach, you have to move on to their standards and to their techniques. And, the more people that come in under Aranda that understand his vision, you're gonna see a better product.
Right, and it reminds me, I wanted to bring this up, it reminds me a lot of actually the off-season of 2017, which was Rule's first off-season, and the reason why I bring that up is because he was trying to build a culture with the players that he was going to bring in. It was also after a 1-11 season where everyone was looking forward to the off-season, like you mentioned, Craig, and if you look at that class, I just kind of want to parallel it to what Dave Aranda is building right now, as you could see a lot of these guys become really good players. But in Coach Rule's first class, guys like Xavier Newman, Treston Ebner, RJ Sneed, Gavin Holmes, John Lovett, James Lynch, Jalen Petrie. I mean,
Ben Sims? Was
Terrell
he in that
Bernard?
first one?
No.
He's in the second one?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Terrell Bernard.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of good.
Ashton Logan, solid contributor now. Ryan Miller played a ton this season. I mean, that class, if you look at it, had a lot of really good parts to it. And I think that you could see the same in Dave Aranda's first class as well, because those guys are coming in and producing a new culture under a new staff.
How about Abram Smith and Ashton Logan? I mean, we saw more of Abram than we saw of Ashton, but we saw plenty of both. We saw both more than we'd ever seen them previously. And, Terrell is a junior. By definition, he is a junior, so typically you would just expect him to come back. With the injury, you'd kind of really expect him to, but he's so good, like you just don't know. There's that little bit of doubt because he is so good that he seems ready for the NFL. But, depending on what happens with him, that will matter quite a great deal. But, if Ashton Logan's starting to come on and Abram Smith's starting to come on, and let's just say Bernard were to come back, Dylan Doyle's going to be back, and I saw that graphic from Pro Football Focus that a lot of the coaches have been retweeting about the Baylor linebackers grading out as like the fourth best unit in the entire country.
Yep.
Like, I know they played well, guys, but were you at all surprised by them being that highly ranked, given the injuries as well that came into play?
No, I mean that's the one thing about it is, but again, on Terrell Bernard, he's got 6 months of recovery here.
Yeah.
I know that he will likely explore his options. And so does he go forward with 6 months and, as an NFL team, take the chance on him? Because anytime you have the shoulder injury, the NFL is going to want to see a clean bill of health.
Right.
Want to see all the surgical records. Y'all covering the Cowboys enough with Sean Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. That's somebody that needs... He needs a year to come back and prove he's healthy, but he had such a great season and great half of last season that the film is there. The tape is there. So an NFL team will look at him and go, wow. And I know guys who are scouts for different teams, and they've all said, wow, if he wasn't hurt, he's gone.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But with him being hurt, there's questions.
Right, and that makes it intriguing, but it makes you feel good about what you have seen from those guys that did have to replace him, and you didn't even realize towards the end of the year that he wasn't playing anymore because you just sort of got used to it, right? And that's a testament to what they were able to do with Ron Roberts' defense. So, that's going to be one of the key questions moving forward. And obviously we got to hear, from a Treston Ebner. I wonder if he's going to make an announcement of any sort. I don't know. Like, do you make an announcement if you're not going to transfer?
I would.
See, I would too, right? Yeah. Just to kind of put it to bed, but I don't know what his plans are. But, there's going to be a couple decisions like that will come into play as well. But this is a new class coming in, and they're going to be ready to take some spots and fight for some spots and starting this spring with the little over a handful of early enrollees. So this is exciting to see these guys put pen to paper. And so far, Baylor about slightly under halfway through their 2021 recruiting class. Of the remaining players that are out there, which is the majority of the class at this point, Grayson, which one is the one that you are most excited to see become official? And I know that you know some of these guys, you want to play favorites and all that, but who's the guy that you're ready to see like, okay, good, he's cemented now?
Well, I mean, if we're assuming that Kyron is pretty much a done deal,
let's just
then
count him because Dad said he was signed.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, not trying to play favorites or anything along those lines, but it is Devin Lemire. And part of it is, because I've gotten to know him, but also it's just because, like Brian said, there's an ability that he has to where he could get on the field early. And he's early enrolling. He's a guy who I think is very important to this class for that reason. I think he can play a number of positions as well, which is going to be very fun to watch. You actually watch his film, and I know a lot of people are talking, the high safety. He got a lot of compliments and kind of comparisons to Grant Delpit at LSU. That's kind of what this Baylor staff had been looking at with him and what they had told him, kind of what they want him to do at Baylor, play in that role that Delpit had. And the more I watch him, I think he could play in that role. I also think he could play Jalen Petre's position just fine as well. He's got a great eye for the football. He's great in the run game, and he also can get after the quarterback pretty good too. And he just makes plays. He creates turnovers, gets interceptions, which is something that obviously Petre did this year because he was put in a great position to do so, and he capitalized on it. And I think Lemire could do the same if he were in that star position as well.
Not to put some salt in the old wounds there, but I mean, I remember back when that 2017 class was coming together under Browse, and Grant Delpit was on campus and was not offered.
What?
They did not offer him.
Gonna ask Phil Bennett about that one on Monday.
Oh yeah, ask him. They didn't offer him. He came in with Hez Jones and
who was a commit eventually.
Donovan Steiner,
who was a commit. Went to Florida eventually.
Yep, played pretty well at Florida. All those, and Jalen Petre. So like that whole group ran together.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember that. Yeah, they were thick as thieves. Kellen Mond was kind of the ringleader.
Jamon Osborne.
They were on the same 7-on-7 team.
Mm-hmm.
It was Hez Jones' dad brought them all into campus, brought Delpit, and we're like, all right, they're going to offer this kid. He is a stud. They're going to get him, and it'll be Steiner and Delpit in the back end, the safeties. Petre, figure out where Petre goes because he was sort of a glue guy of that class too, and left. And we talked to Hez's dad, and they didn't offer him.
Wow, man.
And he was not happy.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be either. Everybody else got an offer.
Drove up from Houston. Now, they were all the other guys were already committed.
Yeah.
And then LSU offers, he commits, and then Baylor offered him.
Wow, I wonder what happened there because of all the players in that. I mean, other than like Baron Browning, maybe. He was there that day too. He was the best player out of the entire group.
Right.
Like not even close. I mean, Kellen Mond's pretty good, but like no, Grant Delpit is the best player out of that group. And Lemire's going to be signing after 12 o'clock. So I tell you what, Armstrong, since we're getting kind of to a slow point of the signees rolling in, let's go ahead and get to Devin Lemire and let's hear from him. Grayson, if you missed it earlier, we had fantastic Zoom interview. Him and Tate Williams, offensive lineman, who will make it official as well later today, but he's good to go. Devin Lemire, a similar situation where his signing ceremony is just a little bit later on. So let's hear from him, as we also have a third interview that we will eventually get to as well after some more signees roll in. But part two of the trio of great conversations that Grayson was able to have with some of these newest Baylor Bears. Here is defensive back Devin Lemire.
This is Grayson Grunhoefer with SicEm365.com, and I'm here with Devin Lemire, Baylor signee out of Manor High School, safety prospect in the 2021 class. Devin, signing with Baylor, man. How awesome is this? How excited are you?
I mean, I'm really excited, just to kind of put pen to paper. It's exciting, especially after like a long process, you're just kind of happy to get it, official. And, now I'm just excited to get to campus, ready to work in January.
Yeah. So about that recruitment process, I've talked to you a ton. I've gone and seen you work out, seen you train, just talked in general other times as well. And I know this wasn't the easiest process for you, but can you kind of just take everyone through just kind of what you went through during this process?
It was a lot of, communicating with a lot of coaches, just trying to get to see who, you feel like you clicked with the best. It was a lot of that, a lot of ups and downs just within it. But, ultimately, I feel like I just found the right school that I felt the most comfortable with, communicating with. I love their scheme. I love what the defense does. I love what they did this year too, as well. And the process was crazy, but I tried to stay away from getting too deep into it just because, I wanted to focus on training, getting ready for the season, getting ready for college, stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So I know early in your recruitment, a big name that kept coming up was Matthew Pallage, the safeties coach at Baylor. He was just a guy that seemed to build a great connection with you really early on. Would you call him kind of the lead recruiter for you and the guy that really put his stamp kind of on your recruitment and your relationship with Baylor?
Yeah, definitely. Him and Coach Nance, Coach Hales, but definitely Coach Powers was the main one, because that's my position coach. We talked a lot. We still talk a lot, really. We have long phone calls just talking about games, life, really, just everything. But, when me and him first connected, it really just clicked. I was just really comfortable with him. I feel like he's a great dude. He's hardworking, and he's still working to get better every day. And that's something that I love to see in a coach, because everybody can get better every day. And he was actually just awarded, I forgot the award name, but he was just awarded something like under 35.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, very cool thing.
Yeah, well deserved.
Yeah. So about just kind of your conversations with him, I know you're obviously viewed as a safety, which is what you played in high school. But I know you're very versatile. But what does the Baylor staff kind of view you as far as, high safety, closer to the line? How do they want to use you?
So Coach Aranda actually has a lot of talks about this. He likes the way that he's going to move me a lot. So I could be down safety sometimes, playing nickel, high safety, potentially I could even play corner, I feel like. But, just really versatile all over the field. So, different, schemes or packages, send me on blitzes, cover, play high safety, all of it. That's what he says. He really wants me to, move me around, kind of use me just like, just a really versatile player.
Yeah, so we've talked quite a bit about you watching Baylor games. I know you've been pretty locked in this year and just kind of following them. And one name that you've mentioned a lot, and since it's a new scheme, you never knew really what to expect, but your game, to me, a little bit kind of could translate quite a bit to what Jalen Petrie has done at that star position, which isn't necessarily a safety. I mean, it could be classified as a linebacker, but I know he's a guy that's gotten your attention on that defense as well, right?
Yeah, he's been playing great. Him and Terrell Bernard, even Woods, safety, they've all been playing really good. But, yeah, Petrie and Bernard were standing out. They're flying around, all making plays, just providing the team with a boost that, it definitely needed this season.
Yeah, and I know Christian Morgan, JT Woods, and Petrie are kind of those guys. Which position out of those three, just based on what you've seen, do you think best fits your game?
I mean, really all of them. Wherever I can get on the field, the earliest. I mean, I just want to contribute at as a young freshman. So anywhere where I can contribute, I mean, that's where I look forward to playing at.
Yeah, and you're going to be enrolling early to Baylor as well, which will be in January, right?
Yes, sir.
And what are you looking forward to with that? And is there anything that you're trying to do to prepare for that, or that they want you to do to prepare for that?
I mean, what I'm looking forward to, for the most part, is just kind of getting with the nutritionist and, the lifting program, just to kind of add weight to my frame. I mean, I feel like that's the biggest thing. I feel like I have the football instincts. I have, the height and everything. Just kind of get my weight up to, playing standards, I guess you would say. But other than that, that's the main thing I'm really looking forward to, just kind of getting ready my body-wise. And then, I mean, they haven't really told me anything to do to get while waiting to get up there because they know I'm already working, so they don't really have to tell me too much.
Okay. And this season you watched Baylor a lot, and you also followed the recruiting class, and there were some decommitments, some additional commitments. There was a few ebbs and flows later on in the season. What did you just think about that whole, I guess, process? It wasn't terrible or by any means, but what were some of your thoughts?
I mean, everybody's journey is different. So I know I decommitted from a college once, and, I wouldn't want people to, think bad about me just because of a decommitment. So I kind of don't judge anybody off of it because, everybody has different opportunities, different paths in life. So that's everybody else's goal to, to chase, what they think is going to be, make them successful. So, I applaud it just because, you got to do what's best for you. And, that's all I really think on it. Other than that, I'm not really too focused on other people's journeys, just mine, what I can control. And that's really all.
Yeah. And were you locked in from the moment you committed to Baylor? Was that pretty much done?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of people, after my first decommitment, people thought I was just kind of, I was going to decommit again, this and that. But the first commitment, it was a different kind of thing. But once I committed, I evaluated schools, I was done. I didn't even communicate with coaches after that. Like, I was done. Only reason I was on Twitter was to retweet friends' posts on offers and commitments. That's really the only reason why I'd be on Twitter.
Yeah, and that was always the vibe I got from you. After you committed, it just seemed like this was pretty much it. Baylor was home for you, and that worked out really well for you in your recruitment for sure. But what did you build a relationship with the commits at all? Do you feel like you have a pretty good relationship with any of the guys in particular?
Yeah, I talked to Cisco a little bit, and all the commits have a group chat. We can definitely be tighter, but I think as we get to know each other more when we meet up, it's gonna get real tight. But I talked to Cisco. I talked to Monterey. I think, Monterey too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the lack of an official visit probably hurt that opportunity, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. So a couple other things I need to ask about. So there's becoming this reoccurring theme right now where Baylor's taking a guy out of Austin pretty much every year. James Lynch, Charlie Brewer, Jalen Ellis, yourself. Is that pretty cool that you're seeing guys from your area get recruited by Baylor, and you could potentially maybe see some guys that along the way while you're at Baylor as well?
Yeah, I think it's cool, kind of creating a little pipeline type thing. I don't know who's going to be next, but, it is cool to be a part of that. We have some great players coming from Austin. And, I still think Austin's really heavily under-recruited. But, just to kind of see that Austin's being recognized by schools like Baylor, even TCU, Texas Tech. So, it's cool just to see that Austin's getting recruited a little heavier.
Not by Texas, though, huh? I'm kidding with you. But you did play against one of your fellow commits, Connor Heffernan, and Georgetown. It was a crazy game too. What was it like? But yeah, I know. I hate to bring it up because I know it's one of those epic games, but can you explain it to someone that wasn't there, just how crazy that game was, and also just the experience of playing with Connor or against Connor?
The best way to explain it is it's like you're excited about something and then just 30 minutes later, you just wish you wasn't a part of it no more. We were up by 28 at halftime. No, 20. We were up by 28 in the beginning of the second quarter. Going to halftime, we're up by 28-14. So everybody in the locker room is kind of like, done deal. We just got to close it out. And they just come out and blast us. They ended up winning 36-26. We didn't score again. And that was just a crazy game. Kind of sucked. It sucks now. It sucked then, but looking back on it now, it's kind of crazy how it happened. But playing against Connor, is a big dude. That's the best way to explain it. He's just a big dude. You don't want him to lock onto you, so you kind of do everything to avoid him as best as possible. And I think he's gonna come in and really, really, really help this Baylor offensive line. You know, they struggled this year because they had a lot of injuries, a lot of COVID things. So he should add some depth to that.
That's awesome, man. And I also have to ask you a little Texas high school football question, just because there's a big game coming up and a couple of your really close friends are playing in it, but they're going up against a Baylor commit. So Austin LBJ with Andrew Mukaba and Latrell McCutcheon are taking on Lindale with Jordan Jenkins, your fellow Baylor commit. What do you think about that matchup? I'm not going to ask which side you're cheering for, but I am going to ask, what do you think will happen in that game, and how excited are you to maybe, I don't know if you're going to watch it or any plans to see it or whatnot?
All right. So, I mean, big time players going to make big time plays. I think we all kind of know that. I do think LBJ is probably going to be the best defense that Lindale plays against as a whole. I mean, they're a really good team. I mean, a lot of athletes, and I like what Coach Finner's doing with that program. You know, he's kind of just really guiding in the right direction. And then Jordan Jenkins is a beast. I mean, in 2 games, he had like 16 touchdowns, which is crazy. So, I mean, then looking at LBJ's last game, the quarterback from Miller, I think it's Miller.
Andrew Body.
He just had 6 touchdowns against LBJ. So I think if LBJ can try to slow down Jordan, then I think LBJ wins it. But if they can't contain him, then it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a shootout.
It should be a really good game.
Yeah, it should be good. I'm definitely watching them.
Are you going? Are you going to it?
I'm not going. I'm just going to watch online.
Okay.
Where is this? Where's that at? Seguin?
Something like that.
Seguin. So, yeah, I'm going to watch online.
Cool, man. So have any of the other recruits caught your eye? I know you mentioned Cisco. You've seen some of his film and stuff, but have you watched anyone else's film or anyone stand out to you?
I mean, basically everybody. I watched, I remember watching all of the receivers. I watched all the receivers. They all stood out, and they're all really fast. You know, they all have great ball skills. And I remember, of course, I watched Kyron play. I played against him last year in round 4, and they beat us Shadow Creek when they won the state championship. So I went back and watched his film again last year and this year. You know, he's really solid, of course. And I watched Jordan play. I really watched everybody, really. I just kind of went through, watched everybody's highlights. Of course, they all look great. So, I mean, I like what I saw.
Yeah, man, you seem to study the game a lot. Where do you get that from, and why has that been just a big part of, I guess, who you are as a player?
I mean, I think that's probably just me. I just enjoy winning, I guess. And anything that I can do to help me get closer to winning, that's what I'm going to do. And, I mean, I think just the fear, I have a fear of, like, losing. So I just try my best to stay away from that fear of losing. So that kind of caused me to put in extra work, put in extra film time. And, you know, most of the time it helps me. You know, this year I wish it would have helped me a little bit more, but it's all lessons.
Yeah, I had to draw a comparison because I know you've mentioned this to me, and just seeing it throughout the season, you know, your Manor team went 2-6 this year, lost, I think 3 games or 4 games by less than 10 points. And then you watch Baylor play and it was extremely similar. What was it like going through that season almost together? It was like you were going through the same things.
Yeah, it's even crazier because, I mean, Baylor had a new coaching staff. We had a whole new coaching staff. And COVID, you know, I think it's just hard to implement a new system and everything, you know, just in a short amount of time. You don't really get to build too much chemistry. So it was extremely similar. So it was actually kind of strange because, like, every time we lost, I would, like, just hope and pray Saturday that Baylor would win just to, like, kind of, like, you know, break the curse, I guess. But the season was very similar. It was actually really weird.
Yeah, really weird parallel there for you. But this is Devin Lemire, Baylor signee in the 2021 class. Devin, do you have anything to say to Baylor Nation before we go?
I can't wait to get to work. You know, I hope, you know, I plan to make next year a lot better. Me and the 2021 commits plan to come and help as much as we can. And I can't wait to be there. SicEm.
So there you go. There's Devin Lemire, one of the newest Baylor Bears. He will be signing officially later this afternoon. But, I mean, as you could tell from that interview, he's officially as officially signed can be without actually putting pen to paper. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Great job, Grayson, getting him and locking him down. And we got one more interview that Grayson conducted that we will have for you coming up a little bit later on. But we do have a new signee in as we continue to rack up the 17-member Baylor recruiting class. Number 8 officially is now in. Cooper Lands. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive end out of a pretty good little high school you may have heard of, Denton Geyer. What do you like about Cooper Lands' game, gentlemen?
Yeah, Denton Geyer, that's a big-time program, and that just lets you know he's playing against some serious competition every single Friday or Saturday. And he's a very good player, and you watch his film and you see him get after the quarterback. He had 8 sacks last year, has 5 sacks this year. He's got 9 quarterback hurries, which also lets you know he's pretty good at getting in the backfield and at least making quarterbacks sweat a little bit. I like his frame. At 6'4", 240 pounds, I think there's a legit possibility that he could get up to 290-ish by the time it's all said and done. And I think he fits their scheme really well, which is probably the biggest thing when you talk about him. He can play that 3-down lineman set and be really effective at it. So I think this is a nice pickup and a guy who, if he translates his game from high school to college, has a great shot at being a pretty impactful player for Baylor for probably 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, anytime you throw a 6'4" guy out there, I mean, he's 240, and he's not done growing. He's 17 years old. I mean, I don't know if he goes 290, but if he goes 260, 270, he's still going to be somebody that can, play outside. He also could be, the stand-up outside edge in this defense. You never know what he's going to do until you get him on campus, get him in the weight room. But he's got the ability. He's got a great motor. Work ethic, obviously, you can see him working all the time. In Denton Geyer, if you're starting at Denton Geyer, you're a player, and that's if you're a player, then if you have the measurables, then you're going P5.
Yeah, and you mentioned working out. That was the tagline that Baylor used for his tweet was "Workout Warrior." So that's clearly part of his DNA. And Cooper Lands is the newest Baylor signee, defensive lineman out of Denton Geyer High School, and a pretty good little program there.
Yeah, and I was going to say a unique feature about him, and this doesn't always happen with Baylor commits, and especially not in this class, but he is actually one of the few guys who I think could make a deep run in the playoffs. And so you might get to see him play that last game of the season in Jerry World and really make it an impactful performance. And I think that's going to allow Baylor fans to probably get to know him pretty well and get to know his game well as they move through playoffs, because I do anticipate that they, probably could be a Final Four team, or at least should be at some point. So very good player, productive career at Denton Geyer as well. Didn't build a great offer list. Part of that was because he committed to Baylor fairly early. The other part about it is just for whatever reason, he wasn't able to test and different things like that because of COVID, and wasn't able to show what he could do as far as measurables go. So again, a good pickup for Baylor, and he fits the scheme really nicely for Dave Aranda and company.
When is the first game today for high school playoffs?
It was supposed to be at 11 a.m. with Richland Springs, but that game got canceled. So now it's 2, I believe, with May versus Sterling City, I believe.
Yeah, we'll get the small schools today and then tomorrow to begin. But yeah, that Balmorhea Richland Springs game, I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do with that yet. I mean, it's postponed, and I don't know. I think they're going to wait and just see, maybe get it in next week or something. I don't know what the plan is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure on the pick I might have said, whenever that's.
Yeah.
Richland Springs when it's.
Yeah, exactly. I said Richland Springs, and yeah, whenever it gets played, that's who I'm sticking with. But yeah, we're gonna have the Texas High School Football Playoff State Championship starting today, believe it or not, and then we're playing state championship games for the lower classification, or like the 1As and everything's gonna get underway, but the 6As. Just starting, they're just starting the playoffs. It's pretty crazy. And Denton Geyer and Cooper Lands, the newest Baylor signee, will be taking on 5-5 Arlington High to open up the playoffs. So Geyer at 8-2. They will play on Saturday at 3:15. You feel pretty good about Geyer winning that football game and moving on.
Just a little.
Yeah, just slightly.
I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. So Cooper lands in the mix. So running down the official signees, Ryan Lingyel, Jordan Jenkins, Monterey Baldwin, Javon Gibson, Dakota Doyle Robinson, Romario Noel, Jackie Marshall, and Cooper lands. So that is 8 of the 17. We know 2 of 2 who will sign later today after we wrap up. So really 10 of the 17. So about 7 guys we're eyeing right now. Cisco Caston, I thought was going to sign earlier. Don't know why he's not official yet. And part of it could just be, just filtering through the paperwork and, doing all that.
I thought he was at 9 o'clock.
8:30.
8. Yeah, okay, then. Yeah, it's coming from Weatherford.
Yeah.
By
So,
horse.
yeah, it must be. Or foot. So, he was supposed to sign earlier, and, who the heck knows in regards to that. But I am seeing a lot of the players, like Javon Gibson tweeted out earlier, it's official Baylor family, and it's him and his family up on the stage at his school. The big Baylor flag. Everybody's got face masks on, of course, and a lot of pictures and Baylor pictures as well, like some of the graphics they sent him. So that's pretty cool to see. It's cool to see these guys finally get their opportunity to make it official and enjoy it. But I know, Grayson, that here in a little less than 10 minutes, there's a player you wanted to make mention of he has Baylor under consideration. I know you're not expecting some big surprise commit here, but it is at least something to pay attention to here in a little bit.
Yeah, Amani Watkins, the running back out of Klein Forest High School, he is actually down to his Final Four, and he didn't mention Baylor in his Final Four because Baylor hadn't offered him yet. Okay. So he was down to Texas Tech, Texas A&M, TCU, and Mississippi State for his Final Four. It's looking more and more like Baylor is actually in the running for him, even though I do not believe that he will end up choosing the Bears ultimately, but he will be making that decision. He told me at 9 a.m. today he should be releasing something for Baylor as far as Amani Watkins goes. He gives them just kind of that next gear guy. Similar to a Squirrel. I'm not going to call him the same player Squirrel is at all.
Gosh, we're starting getting questions already on the podcast
I know,
about this guy.
it's coming, but he would give them a different change of pace than what they currently have on their roster. I know a lot of people kind of liken him a little bit to Treston Ebner as well, but a very good player and really just an offensive player. He, just very productive, can do it all, can take carries to the house, can take catches to the house, and he's a legit 4-star. A guy who would definitely bolster the recruiting rankings, that's for sure. Is he a need in this class? No, but I think he'd be a nice luxury to add if Baylor were able to get him. But like I said, I do think things are trending in a different direction.
Where do you think he goes? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I'm going to take an O-line or a D-line over him. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Leave me that spot. Give me an O-line or a D-line. Mm-hmm. Give me a JC on either side of that versus signing another running back.
Yeah. Grayson, you want the playmaker?
No, I'm probably with Brian, but
okay.
I will say I don't think that if they land him, I will certainly tell you I won't be upset.
No, you're not going to get mad about it at a 4-star, but if you've got a certain amount of spots and you're prioritizing, he's not in your top tier.
Well, yeah, and the only reason he, in my opinion, is really on Baylor's radar was because of the injury to Squirrel, because of losing John Lovett. The depth on the roster is a little bit questionable currently, even though I love the young guys they have with Ebner coming back as well potentially. I think that they have a good group, but I also will say we saw at the end of the year they were running out of bodies at the position, and so that's where a guy like him comes into play, I think, for this staff. But again, not expecting him to choose Baylor, but they are in contention.
Is he better than Tay McWilliams?
No.
Is he better than Jonah White?
Is he better than Jacoby Clark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
No
because that was Baylor's. No, not at all. But that was Baylor's running back to end the season.
I will say he is different though than Jordan Jenkins, Tay McWilliams, Jonah White. Like a lot of these guys have similar builds. He's different. He's probably more similar to Jonah than the other two.
Yeah.
But if you get what I mean, I don't think he's a true workhorse back, but he gives you that kind of other option, that extra gear type option that you could throw in there.
I think Jonah can be an every down back. I don't think Amani Watkins.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it looks like they're probably not going to get him. But if they do, then, hey, we will certainly pass it along here in the next few minutes. I did want to bring up that there is at least one player out there who they're in contention for. And that's about it, right, Grayson? I mean, there's not like your typical big drama on signing day where you've got like maybe a handful if you're one of the more blue blood schools that has, a guy with a top 5 or whatever on ESPN. But, I mean, for Baylor, they typically have like maybe a couple of those each year. But I guess you'd say really he's the only one that's sort of they're waiting on a decision, or are there others?
Yeah, so Cameron Bonner was obviously one that they were waiting on, got that commitment on Monday. But the other guys, so I will say there are some guys that I am intrigued to just kind of watch how things unfold. Roderick Daniels with SMU, I haven't seen if he's signed yet or not, but I'm curious, to just kind of see, does that actually pen to paper happen? Hal Presley the same way with Gus Malzahn leaving Auburn. What happens with him? Is he signed yet, or is Baylor going to potentially flip him? So there are some guys like that I'm watching, but the main guys who are kind of, I guess you'd say, free agents currently are uncommitted. Brian Rudder, wide receiver Keith Ron Lee, I believe he is probably going to end up at TCU, but he's also a guy that Baylor is in contention for currently at this moment. Amani Watkins is another one that we mentioned who they are continuing to look at. And I think those are probably the main ones. I mentioned a little earlier, Jalen Samuels out of Sam Rayburn is another. He's currently committed to SMU. But, there was some smoke there leading up to signing day. But again, I believe Baylor's pretty set with the class they got. And if they do flip anyone, it's just a cherry on top.
Well, it looks
Presley
like
is official.
Okay. Presley's official. Okay, I'll get to him in just one second. I wanted to mention that Roderick Daniels has not signed yet. I don't know what the plan is for him. I mean, was he expected to sign early?
Yes, he was expected to sign. So whenever that does come down, that will be kind of eliminate another. I expect him to sign with SMU, but I know, once again, Baylor's been recruiting these guys, and recruiting's a weird thing. And with his recruitment, it's very weird because he kind of decommitted out of nowhere, committed with SMU shortly after. So you never know there. But again, I expect him to end up at SMU.
Okay, so yeah, he'll probably sign later today. But if he doesn't, then that's something. Just go, okay, wait a second there. Maybe there's something building for part 2 here in a few weeks, and that'll be fascinating, right? To see kind of how they regroup after today, and then all right, so we've got this many guys on the roster. You subtract a couple from earlier this week. Now you go into, now we officially have 17 more. And I know the scholarship situation doesn't have to be back to normal for this year, but you also have to be accounting for 2022 and getting back down to 85. So basically you got to be a coach and a mathematician all at the same time in some way, and kind of a fortune teller in a way as well. It's
Dave
hard.
Aranda better have his crystal ball out.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to manage it all because of the way the scholarship limits are going to come back down. But yeah, that's just something to keep an eye on. So we will see how that goes for Baylor here, and or how it goes for SMU, I guess you should say, and then we'll see what happens potentially with him. So just waiting on some more names to roll around for Baylor. But I guess we should probably start getting into just some of these names that we know we're going to sign later and just running them down before we run out of time here. So we've talked about the guys that have become official. So some of the non-official guys, basically Kyron Drones is official. They just have not sent out his graphic. We know that at this point.
So should we start with him?
Let's start with Kyron Drones, the quarterback. That's what everybody loves, right? The 4-star out of Shadow Creek. They're in the playoffs. They're contenders perhaps for a state championship. They're no stranger to the state championship. Been there the last couple of years. This is a young man who will come join a group that now includes obviously Jacob Zeno and Blake Shapen and Gary Bohannon, and he will be a part of that mix. So Kyron Drones.
Yeah, and Kyron is, this year, in my opinion, is going to be so great for Kyron's future as a player. Last year, he had 64 touchdowns. They won the 5A state championship, basically running through everyone. I mean, it was unbelievable, the numbers that he put up in the year that he had. But this year, they moved up to 6A. He got injured early in the season as well. So it's been kind of a rough go, and they've had to face a lot of adversity. One of his buddies and, of course, a former Baylor commit, Randy Masters, left the program. So lots of just not ideal situations going on, and he's been able to make them still a playoff team and a team that won the first round game and a team that I think is pretty dangerous and no one wants to play in the playoffs. But Elite 11 quarterback, great skill, great talent, very good athlete. When you look at explosiveness, the vertical, broad jump, things like that really let you know what kind of athlete you are, that's where he checks the boxes from that standpoint. He's also young and raw currently. I don't think he walks in and is the starting quarterback at Baylor. I will say that right now, but I also think that if you put him on the roster, he might have the highest ceiling of any quarterback on Baylor's roster. So those things kind of go hand in hand, and obviously I think he fits what Larry Fedora is trying to do on offense. And great offer list, the only true high kind of 4-star guy they have in this class according to every national site. And Arkansas, Auburn, Colorado, Missouri, Northwestern, Ole Miss, TCU, great offer list. And he's a guy that, again, the sky's the limit for him.
He can spin it too. He's got a great arm. I mean, we saw that in the Elite 11. He got politicized out of the Elite 11. I mean, he won that competition and doesn't make the top 11. I mean, that's again
weird.
We know how the game's played.
Yeah.
A guy who didn't even attend won it.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that got in second, third didn't attend, but they won. They're there. Great frame. I mean, Grayson, he stood beside you. You're 6'2". He's 6'2 and a half, 6'3". He's got a good broad shoulders. Not afraid to take a hit. I mean, that's what got him hurt against North Shore. But again, you get that guy in the weight room, he's going to be 225, 230 at 6'2 and a half, 6'3", and only going to get stronger, only get a little faster, and a little bit more mobile. So he's somebody to watch. I do think like Marquise Williams, who was the quarterback at North Carolina, is a good comparison, but with more throwing than running. But he's not afraid to tuck it and go.
Yeah, showing a little bit of foot speed there in a couple of the highlights that we saw, especially that run to the corner of the end zone. So Kyron Drones, watch him sling it right there in the Alamo Dome. Yep. Still alive in the playoffs with Shadow Creek. QB one for this class because he's the only one in this class.
And that highlight right there is actually against Manor. And there's Devin Lemire right there on the play. So it's kind of funny. They know each other pretty well from that. I believe it was a Final 4 or Final 8 game last year when Shadow Creek made their run.
Yeah, so a couple teammates now that were just playing each other a year ago. But you heard from Devin Lemire. We had that interview a little bit earlier on. So running through these names here, Kyron Drones, starting off with him. We heard earlier from Tate Williams, big offensive lineman out of Wall. So it was great to hear from him. And I know you guys are both high on what he can eventually do and what he'll eventually bring to this offensive line. And Lord knows they need the help, however they can get it.
Yeah, so he actually is a guy who James Blanchard found. James Blanchard, obviously, with the Carolina Panthers now. But he just made this huge jump where he was an unranked, nobody knew him guy to a 4-star 93 type level prospect in what felt like 2 months. I mean, it was ridiculous how quickly he blew up. The thing about Tate that you love to see is, first of all, his motor. He never gives up on a play, never wants to not block somebody. And second, it's his finishing ability. I mean, he puts guys on their backs all the time, and especially when since he plays for Wall, this is a team that just runs the ball. They amassed 250 yards per game rushing, so that's what he's comfortable with. That's what he does, and he really just takes guys out of plays. One thing he's going to have to work on is, since Wall runs so much, his pass protection ability is pretty much a zero right now. And he admitted that. He was like, I've never really been in a scheme that's like that. It's going to be a long learning curve for him. But once he gets that, it's going to be just, here we go. Because I think he'll be a starter at guard for Baylor. He's got that, again, finishing ability and the athleticism to do pass protection. Great measurables too, Brian. The arm length, the hand size, possible NFL level prospect here.
The one thing I like about him too is sometimes you have big guys that play at small divisions and they patty cake their smaller opponents, and that's not the deal here. He finishes them. It's one thing so that part of his game is there. He's got the meanness. It's not in the toughness, and he has the mobility. That's the one thing. And I had, one of the trainers up in Dallas tell me, well, he's blocking, 1A guys and 2A guys or whatever. I was like, you get your big fat butt out there and catch one of those 5'8" guys, right?
Yeah.
And when you're 6'4", that's not easy to do. So if you're able to go out there and find one of those, smaller guys are quick, and it's really hard to get your hands on them, and that's the advantage for them. So when you're going out and you're 6'4", 260, 270 pounds, and able to track down a guy who's 5'8", 150, who likely, is much faster than you or quicker than you in space, and the advantage really isn't there anymore, that's special. And he also finishes those guys. We used to watch it on the Quan McGowan tape, right? Or the kid out of Wellington a couple of years ago, that 6'10" guy.
Oh yeah, right? I remember that kid.
Laquan would latch onto you and just drive you. The kid from Wellington, I think he went to Tech.
Yeah.
He didn't do any of it, right? If he got a hold of you, it was over. But otherwise, he couldn't get to you. Tate can get to you, and so at offensive guard, when he pulls, he's going to come around and get to you, and that's going to be the fun part to watch.
Jordan Jenkins, running back, officially signed. We talked a lot about him, perhaps the crown jewel. Him and Drones, probably the two most widely talked about players. Jordan Jenkins, Lindale, still in the playoffs, actually playing for a state championship this week. And he made it official just a little while ago, been committed since April. And he is the only running back commit in this class. And so he'll join a group of, Tay McWilliams and eventually a Squirrel Williams down the line. And obviously you've got Jonah White and you've got potentially Treston Ebner. We'll see what happens there. And they've got a good group of backs, and he'll be a nice compliment. But he's right now thinking about a state title ring. But earlier today he was thinking about putting pen to paper, and he did. And Jordan Jenkins is official. I know that's one the coaches were thrilled about.
Yeah, and you look at his highlights, it looks like he's just thinking about touchdowns, to be honest. Every run looks like a touchdown. And one thing I wanted to note on him that I thought was absolutely hilarious, when I talked to him earlier in the season, he was like, I'm struggling right now. I'm struggling running. Guys are hitting me low. I'm not used to it. I need to change my running style.
Look at that.
And as the season progressed, this guy picked up so much steam. I honestly think if he had kind of, I guess not necessarily been more prepared, but if he had gotten comfortable sooner, we could be talking about him possibly breaking the state record for rushing yards. He's got a chance to catch John Gray for second all-time in touchdowns. I don't think he can get any higher than that, but he's had an impressive year, guys. It's so fun to watch, and he's going to be 6'1", 215 when he gets on campus and ready to go, probably.
What is the record?
I don't know. For rushing touchdowns in a single season?
65. And he's at 50. Yeah, Jonathan Gray at a lead.
Oh, yeah.
He dropped 15. Yeah. Come on, just drop 15.
Yeah, just 15 in a state title game is nothing.
The second one is John Gray with 59, his sophomore year.
So they're squaring off against
Argyle.
Yeah.
He needs
Lindale
9.
and Argyle.
He can get it.
Yeah, he can do it. He can do it. Jonathan Gray.
He can get the 5.
One of the great players at the high school level, but that didn't pan out the way you thought he was going to at the college level. Him and Malcolm Brown, that running back tandem that Texas signed them back-to-back years, both 5 stars, and neither one of them really – Malcolm Brown's still in the NFL, but at the college level they didn't do a whole heck of a lot. But, Jonathan Gray's records are just ridiculous. So, rolling along the rest of this recruiting class so far. Some of these guys not yet signed, but we're going to highlight them anyways. And let's get to Tevin Williams, the cornerback out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. I just saw his father actually retweeting a Baylor tweet, I believe. So he's just not signed as of yet, but he will be. Tevin Williams, guys, what do you like about the corner out of Oklahoma?
He's got a 10 o'clock signing day. He was going to try to call in.
That's right. That's right.
But I think we're, I guess we're going off the air a little earlier. But if we go to 10, he'll call in. Mm-hmm. And this is the one thing about this. We didn't, it's dragging out for some reason with Baylor. But this kid's got wheels. He can go, and he plays, wide receiver, cornerback, prototypical size. and everything you need. Great kid, great family again. Wanted to get out of state. Has told all the Oklahoma schools he was not staying in Oklahoma, and he didn't. He made his choice, stuck with it, and here he is.
And I should mention his father, actually, the tweet I saw was retweeting Armstrong. So it was the picture of Armstrong and the studio here. So that's a good sign when the father is retweeting SicEm365 radio and Armstrong Sim. So that's a great deal there.
Yeah, and guys, I think it's important to note he's actually the most recent 4-star in the class. He actually got rated a 4-star, the most recent, and he deserved it. He had a great year. And one highlight that I think everyone needs to watch, he posted it on his Twitter. He caught this really short pass and then just ran down the sideline like a hurricane and showed off his speed. And that really just shows, and actually this might be it. Yeah, this is it right here, what they're showing on the film right there, just blown by everyone, separating himself by 10 yards. And he's not even a wide receiver. I mean, he's playing wide receiver for them, but he's a cornerback all the way. He had to play safety some for Stillwater because teams were simply just not throwing at his side. So they moved him to safety some to allow him to be more impactful as far as taking a whole side of the field away potentially. So he kind of did a little bit of both in high school and was very elite at it. I was super impressed with him. I know he's kind of upset with the way the season ended. I know they wanted an opportunity to take on Bixby in the state championship game. They got upset just before that, unfortunately. But a great year for Tevin Williams, and a guy who I think Baylor fans are going to get to know really quick, because I do think he's got the chance to be in the 2 deep immediately when he gets on campus, which is saying a lot.
Extremely versatile athlete. Yeah. That's the one thing about him. And need cornerbacks, there's your cornerback.
Yeah, and they probably will, because Raleigh Tejada's most likely bound for the next level. And, I mean, maybe, but like I'm thinking if Raleigh made that choice, I wouldn't be shocked by it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. But if he were to, then, yeah, you're going to need some cornerback help right away, because you'll have Kalen Barnes. He was banged up all year. Mark Milton obviously has a long way to go, and then you got young guys. I mean, that's basically it. So do you think maybe that's a JUCO route? Well, maybe not. I don't know, but
they'll look. They'll look at potential transfers.
I would think so.
Colby White, right?
Yeah.
He's out
Brandon
there.
White.
Oh, sorry, Brandon White. Yeah,
Brandon White.
Lorando Johnson.
So
it's young, unproven.
Yeah.
That's about it, I think. Yeah. So Tevin Williams, good chance you see him play pretty early on next year. Young man out of Stillwater. He'll sign at 10. Player who we talked about just a little while ago, and this was one that I know everybody was very excited to see be official. We were talking about him, so you don't have to necessarily talk too much about him, but Jackie Marshall, linebacker out of Louisiana.
Yeah, it's just a huge get. Possibly you could make the argument it's the biggest get in the entire class. You could make the argument that he's the best defensive prospect in this class. Just, again, very versatile player, a guy who could see the field pretty early in his career at Baylor.
Signed, sealed, and delivered Devin Lemire. We talked about him, and we already played that interview, correct? Or did we?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we did. So we got one more we'll get to in just a little bit. But Devin Lemire, we talked about him, the safety out of Manor. He's going to be official here soon. A player we have not mentioned yet, linebacker out of Orange, Tyrone Brown. He's been committed since October of 2019.
Yep. He's the other commit. We mentioned Romario Noel. He's the other guy who's been committed since Rule. And everyone's heard me and my takes on Tyrone Brown. I think there's a chance he's the best defensive player in this class. I think he is the prototypical linebacker that Ron Roberts and the staff want at the interior position. He just can do it all. And at 5'11", 200, which he is at 225 pounds now, he let me know. But he ran at Baylor's camp at 200 pounds. He ran faster than Terrence Cooks, a 4-star recruit that's committed to Texas, faster than Cisco Caston and Devin Lemire at camp at 200 pounds when the other guys were all pretty much under 200. So great athlete, great instincts, a guy that just plays football. I mean, you watch his film, he fills gaps correctly. He's always in the right place. And this year, he had a huge knack for forcing turnovers, which was really impressive to see.
And it's one of the guys the national guys missed on again. They thought he was 5'8", and I've argued with at least. Again,
hey, there's a way to figure that out, guys.
Watch his film. He's clearly not 5'8".
The thing is, he came out to the the container studio, and stood next to me. I'm 5'9". He's taller than I am. He's got a broader base than me, and it's frustrating.
Yeah,
that's one of those ones that you sit there and I was like, well, he stood next to me, and I sent him a picture of him standing next to me, and then I went and stood next to them and said, tell me, I'm taller than you are.
Yeah.
So tell me why he's not taller than you.
Well, because he's not a Texas or A&M commit, Brian. That's why. I mean,
he's a 409 kid, and those guys they go out there and they don't go to the 409 to look at these kids.
No.
I mean, again, I lived in Galveston 5 years. I mean, there are athletes all over the place down there. Some of them have great issues, but Port Arthur, that whole Golden Triangle, has kids. You can find kids, but you gotta go look. You got to get off your butt and go look for them.
And Baylor's feasted off that area here as of late. When James Blanchard was around, they loved that Golden Triangle, and guys like Graylin Arnold and others were Golden Triangle guys.
Yeah, and guys, one thing to note, like Brian's mentioning, and this is why this recruitment has been just kind of, his ranking is basically appalling. 247 has him outside the top 270 players in the state of Texas.
In the state of, not the country.
In the state of Texas.
In the state of Texas.
I mean, go watch his film. My goodness.
Somebody at 24/7 go watch his film. That's what they need to do.
And I'll tell you this. I know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
And that person, I know the guy at Baylor that tried to push him for 24/7. But those guys don't go to camps. So how do you push that guy to the national guy if you don't go to the camp and actually get the measurements yourself? Grayson and I go to these camps. Colt goes to these camps. We do. We spend weekends going to these things, and you can say, that's the reason we go out here and we know who these kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do your homework, you don't go out and hit the road, you're not gonna have the right information.
Player who won't be signing until 3 o'clock, but he'll be signing with Baylor at 3 o'clock. And position of need, no doubt about it, offensive line, Connor Heffernan out of just down the road in Georgetown, Texas. What do you like about Connor Heffernan?
Yeah, he's an early
Besides his last name.
Yeah, it's a great last name, and he's probably one of the more important gets in this class. First of all, early enrollee. That's a big deal. Second of all, because he can play a lot of different positions on the offensive line, good versatility. He will come in and play center to begin. He will start there. And at 6'4", 290, I mean, he's already there. I mean, he's almost there. Put on 15 pounds, 20 pounds when he gets here, and he could be ready to play almost immediately. And Baylor had a lot of issues at the offensive line, and I even felt like center at times. How many bad snaps did we see this season?
And it didn't matter if it was Newman or if it was Moore or whatever. It was just kind of that was a consistent thing.
And so I actually think of the guys that they are signing on the offensive line, I think he's the most likely to get playing time, partly because he's an early enrollee, partly because I think his film is great, and I think his frame is already close enough that he could put on the proper weight to hold up there.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope for sure.
I mean, I hope that the guys in front of him can, hold up, and he doesn't have to see the field, and he can go out there and, again, get more strength, get more athleticism. But yeah, I like him. He's grown from 6'2.5", 6'3", up to 6'4". He might be a little taller. I mean, the one thing is, I know that we're talking center, and I know the staff's talking center to him, but if he shows up at 6'5", he might be tackle or guard.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now he's taller than Tate Williams, and Tate was, he was, standing next to him on the track. Tate had on cleats, and Heffernan was still taller, and we know that Tate measures 6'3.5". So, some of those things you can look out there and say in the future, 16 to 17-year-old, 18-year-old boys still grow.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. We talked about Javon Gibson a bit already, wide receiver out of Richmond. How about another wide receiver? Has not yet signed yet, but he is a well, I guess first your thoughts on Javon Gibson. Let's go ahead and get what last thoughts on him.
Yeah, just big that he's an early enrollee. Like I mentioned, I think he might have the highest ceiling of the guys currently commit at the wide receiver position. Just with that frame, 6'3", he's already, I think he's closer to 180 pounds than what we have him listed at 165. And I think that he's got the burst, the ability to go up and win contested balls, which is something that Baylor really struggled with this year. And this is a big get, and getting him on campus early, I think will do wonders for him, as I think he's got a long way to go. But once he gets there, he's going to be a problem in the Big 12.
By the way, just saw Alabama flipped a 4-star defensive end from LSU. So it's really signing day, guys. It's really signing day when you're seeing things like that happen. Moving on the list here, speaking of wide receiver, a player who has not signed yet. We're actually going to go 3 receivers in a row here. But Cameron Bonner, who is a nice new addition, just committed a couple of days ago out of Houston St. Thomas High School. Your thoughts on Cameron Bonner?
Yeah, the newest addition. He's been really, really productive over his last 2 seasons. Has nearly 2,000 total yards receiving and 20 touchdowns. He's a yak machine, as I like to call him. He catches the ball and then produces big gains after it. If you watched his junior highlights, it was pretty much him just running by defenders, and that's great to see, obviously. You want to see that top-end speed where you're taking the top off the defense and then running for scores. But in his senior film, you saw him become more of a technician, which I think is still an area that he has to grow on. But you're seeing him run curls, run digs, just do a little bit more than just running by defenders. And I think one of his biggest qualities, and it's something that I loved about Jalen Ellis when he got to Baylor, was his ability to make a cut, whether it's on a post or a slant or a deep route, and not lose his speed. Able to keep his momentum through that burst and run by a safety. Really elite stuff. And Cam Bonner is a guy who I think you're going to see big things from him on the track this year. He's expecting to run a 10.5, which would be very elite. So this is a big get for the staff, and I know he's been one that Brian and I have known since junior day. He's a guy who Baylor's been on since then, and there was a little bit of a hitch at one point in his recruitment, which you'll hear a little bit later during my interview with him, but at the end of the day, he ended up where he was supposed to.
And we'll have that coming up in probably 10 minutes or so. We'll see what happens if any new signees come around, but Brian, your thoughts on Cam Bonner?
NFL lineage. I mean, he knows. I mean, his dad has been through it, right? Played for the Redskins. Great family. He has everything you're looking for in a wide receiver. All right, he's got speed, got good size. He's got ball skills. He goes and gets the ball. I thought he got lost in the wash a little bit when Baylor had the 4 commitments, and he was a guy like, there's kids that fall through the cracks a little bit who are great athletes, and sometimes you're like, man, what's going to happen to this kid? Is he going to end up going out of state because he didn't get – this is a numbers game. Mm-hmm. And then when he was at there, Baylor was able to get back on him, get him committed. I actually like him better than someone who was committed earlier, and happy he's a Bear.
So, sticking with kind of the whiteout group, Elijah Bean out of Humble, he committed back in May. So the Bears are the 4 wide receiver group that they're signing today. We've already talked about, obviously, Javon Gibson and Cameron Bonner. But how about Elijah Bean? And we've talked a little bit about Monterey Baldwin. We'll get back to him in a little summarized. But Elijah Bean, first time talking about him today.
Yeah, big. I mean, absolutely huge. I know we have him listed 6'4", 190. That's about right. There's a chance he shows up on campus and he's actually 6'5", though. I'm telling you, he's got a great frame. He
6'5", 205, 210.
Yeah, easily. He almost looks like a tight end out there. It's pretty interesting to watch, but he's got very good speed, ran track, put up good numbers there. This season had a pretty good year, 41 receptions, 525 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So really solid numbers there for a team that was really bad at Summer Creek. So he was kind of a bright spot for them. But good athlete, like I said, and really one that I think when he first committed, we talked about the fact that he could potentially play a different position. But as the season's unfolded, I'm thinking I like him more and more at wide receiver. I think he can get it done at that position. It's just going to take work. He's going to have to work on his route running. He's going to have to work on just a variety of things, especially the technician part of being a wide receiver. But he's got a very nice ceiling if all of that comes together.
He's a long strider, and I'm just going to say this. The horse has arrived. Cisco Caston in.
Yes, we've got another official name to add to the list as Baylor continues to get their letters of intent in. Of their 17 commits, we know of a couple of them that will be signing after we leave the airwaves, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll be back on the airwaves at 3 o'clock when one player's signing, but Cisco Caston becomes the official number 10 signee, because I'm lumping in Kyron Drones, even though he still doesn't have a graphic yet. I don't know what's going on with that, but Cisco Caston, and it's actually his turn in this order I'm going in, so that's even more perfect. A young man who was committed back in March, and another player in the secondary. So what do you think of Cisco?
Yeah, dreams to reality is his headline on his magazine right there. And I really like this kid's game. And I know a lot of people were afraid that he might actually be one that could look in another direction. When he got the Florida State offer, Miami, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, there were just thoughts that could happen by some people, but he's been locked in. It's been really cool to see that. And this is another kid who at Weatherford this year was asked to do a lot. Had to play quarterback some, threw a passing touchdown, had a rushing touchdown, had a couple of receiving touchdowns to go along with 60 tackles, 3 interceptions, and a forced fumble. Really good-looking athlete at about 6'2", 200. And I just enjoyed watching him play this year. His team was not great, but he just kept on grinding and kept on making plays. And I think he's another very versatile prospect that they brought in the secondary. I think he could play the deep safety. I think he could play close to the line. I actually think for Cisco, I think my favorite position for him is actually Christian Morgan's spot. I think that's where Cisco could have his biggest impact, but great prospect, great speed. He just hits guys very hard, is not afraid to make an impact in the run game, and that's very important in Dave Aranda's scheme.
I mean, to say they were not good is an understatement. I know.
Pretty bad, huh?
Yeah, but he played kick returner, punt returner, safety, both free safety, strong safety, played cornerback, wide receiver, quarterback,
running back. He was their team, and you got to think about this. I mean, at that level, you're wearing him out, and he showed up every night, and played hard. Again, another good kid. I mean, he's 6'3", 193 right now. He's going to be 6'3", 2 1/4. He is going to either destroy people at safety, or he's going to be moving down to linebacker. But that's the one thing about him. He's got the ability to do either one. And love his game. I mean, his senior tape is phenomenal on a bad team. Yeah.
I mean, when you look at him, you're like, yeah, you're the best player on your team. There's no doubt about it. And you're the best player on the field. No doubt about it. Even against teams who are killing you.
Alito, 70-7.
Yeah, and he's still the best athlete on the field.
Well, he is now a Baylor Bear. Cisco Caston, safety. He was committed back in March. He is officially signed. So I'm looking at this list right here, and the only players that remain unsigned at this point, Tate Williams, who we know will be later, Tevin Williams, who we know will be later, Devin Lemire will be later, Tyrone Brown, okay, well, he'll sign at some point. Connor Heffernan, we know, will be later. Cameron Bonner, Elijah Bean. Those are the remaining unsigned guys, but now over halfway through officially their recruiting class. So I know we've got another interview to get to, so let's rip through these final names here. Ryan Langiel, if you want to talk about any of these guys in particular. Romario Noel, Monterey Baldwin, Cooper Lands, and Dakota Doyle Robinson. We talked about all 5 of those guys earlier on in the show, went in depth on all of them, so you can press rewind or something later on. But guys, anything you want to say about those names that I mentioned there that you want to add on or anything?
Just good to have them in the fold.
Yeah.
I mean, adding these guys as signees, I mean, going from commit to signee, that's a big step forward. And Baylor so far, it's a home run, really, with the guys that they've been able to sign. And as long as they're able to keep all the commits in the fold, it's a successful day.
And also, now if you have 17, you're thinking 23, 24 kids, it's going to be something you can go out there and, the hunt's on for February.
Yeah.
And so Grayson's got a lot of work to do.
I sure do. I'm excited. Transfer portal season.
Transfer portal season, JC season.
Oh, yeah.
Because think about this. You're not going to – JC season starts, January, February?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A ton of JCs here in the state. If something, if Baylor's after an O lineman or a D lineman, say at Ranger or Cisco or wherever.
Trinity Valley, Navarro.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that far. Mm-hmm. We can get out there and see them, and there's not anything in between besides basketball games that might be played.
Well, we have another new signee, player I just asked about, Tyrone Brown. He is now official. So that is the 11th official out of 17, 11th official signee out of 17. We just talked about him a moment ago, but linebacker out of Orange, Texas, and Tyrone Brown becoming a really common name on this football team. It feels like there's like 5 Tyrone Browns on this team, but hey.
And they're all from the 409.
Yeah, they're all from down in that area, but he is now official, so another linebacker in the fold for the Baylor Bears.
The big hitter.
The big hitter, is that his tagline?
Is his tagline.
Cool, I like it.
That's great for a linebacker, and like I said, just a guy who had such an awesome senior season. I just felt like his tape was tremendous. The turnovers that he forced, the hits he was able to put on the opponent. That play right there, just taking the ball from the running back out of the pile and returning it for a touchdown. He's a fantastic player. And again, in my opinion, the most criminally underrated prospect in this class, because outside the 270 in the state,
Grayson, you're 271.
Yeah.
It's a nice magazine cover right there. I like that.
I'll still go Jackie Marshall on the criminally underrated, but yes.
At least he's a high 3-star. This is.
That's still underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. While we've been rolling along over the last couple of hours, I want to say great job by Jack and Armstrong here behind the scenes as they've been throwing those graphics up and the videos up, and a big thanks to Colt Barber for a lot of the graphics work, and a real team effort all across the board here on National Signing Day. Hopefully you're enjoying it, and nice to have Tyrone Brown officially in the fold. So, Jack, I wanted you to mention, if you don't mind, what you were telling me just a little while ago before. We're going to go to this interview here in just a second, but you were taking a look around at kind of the reviews of National Signing Day graphics. That's become like a whole thing of its own here over the last couple of years. And of course, Baylor with the puppets last year got a lot of attention, but now it's become a deal where you have almost like the best schools and graphics on signing day list. So apparently Baylor got a little bit of love, I guess, on ESPN or something like that, Jack?
Yeah, so ESPN, it's kind of one of their puff pieces, just recapping National Signing Day. And I think it was about the third or fourth one down, it was Baylor, and they said, we're literally making headlines. So it's nice to get a little love nationally on ESPN, especially next to some really, really cool stuff. Like right above us was Paul's favorite, Florida State. They were mocking, not mocking, they were using backyard football. So it's cool to get out there on the national stage and get recognized for the hard work from the people in the graphics department over there, and just kind of keep growing the brand.
Patrick Clancy, or who is that?
Yeah.
Clancy and his team. So, great job, Patrick, and your team. And obviously, we don't really work with them, but we do appreciate what they do.
Oh, yeah. That's 2 signing days in a row where the creative team has, brought some positive headlines because of the way that they've been able to, unfurl these signees as they become official. So good job by everybody over there in the Baylor graphics department.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the second year, I guess really third year in a row, they've done a really, really good job. And I don't really remember it before Rule what they looked like.
The puppets are the start of that to me. I don't even remember what was before that. I kind of vaguely do, but I couldn't even tell you right now. It's in the back of my head, and there's a small memory, but not nearly as vivid as the puppets from last year.
Never, ever, ever would that be unetched from our minds.
No, of course not. Of course not. That thing made headlines, or that idea made headlines, no doubt about it. about it, and Baylor was the talk of signing day in some ways. So signing day rolling along, they've got over half their class in, and one player who's not signing quite yet, but a player who we've already broken down and we talked about. He's one of a quartet of wide receivers that will be signing with Baylor officially today. Grayson did a great job of putting together some interviews. We heard from Tate Williams earlier and Devin Lemire earlier. And we'll hear some more interviews this afternoon on SicEm365 Radio starting at 3 o'clock. But we got one more that we want to get in today. And Cam Bonner with Grayson Grunhoefer.
This is Grayson Grunhoefer with SicEm365.com, and I'm here with Baylor 2021 signee Cameron Bonner out of St. Thomas. Cam, I know you're excited, man, but what made Baylor the right place for you and just the right fit?
Yeah, so earlier in the process, Baylor, I felt that they wanted me to recruit as a DB, and which was not really what I wanted to do at the time, and I kind of still don't, but they stressed to me that it was just as an athlete. And so when they came back towards me, it was just the whole family environment and how I felt the love from the moment that they called me back and saying, "Hey, Cam, what's up? How have you been?" It's just everything like that. And then having those other commits like Kyron and Javon Gibson, just those other great commits that are going there. And like, I feel like we could do something special there. Definitely.
So I'm going to need you to take me through it a little bit, because I know in March, I saw you at the junior day and I felt like you were pretty much all Baylor. I felt like it was going to be a really good fit, but I also knew you wanted to take your time and you were hoping to go visit schools and all of that. So just kind of walk me through your process from that point all the way till you released your top 5, I think it was, all the way until now.
Up 6. Yeah. So like, March 1st, when I went to Baylor, those Sunday Fun Day, I think they called it. And then I had a great time. The campus was beautiful. I had a great tour, met all the coaches, met everyone, and it was just really fun. We loved it. And but I still wanted to be like, because at the time I really didn't want to stay in Texas. I kind of wanted to go far in a sense, and like I didn't realize that like going far didn't mean leaving the state. And so. And then I had a few more offers come in, some more Power 5s, Big Ten, couple Pac-12s, and some American conferences, and other conferences just like that. And they are all great. And just was a long process because I would be on Zooms and calls all day, every day, throughout the week, especially with COVID happening during that time. We had a lot of downtime happening with no spring football. So I really couldn't actually talk to people face to face in person. And as getting towards in the summertime, I started to narrow down my options with the top 6 with with Houston, Illinois, Utah, Arizona, Pittsburgh, and A&M. And when I narrowed that down, those were I was kind of set on those schools, and then commits started happening in different schools and situations throughout that whole process happened. And then Baylor came back in the picture when they had those 2 decommitments with Roderick and Hal Presley. Yeah. When that happened, it was like, okay, maybe God's telling me something. Maybe I can still have that chance to play at Baylor, even if it's still at DB. Maybe I can open my mind to that. I kind of opened my mind to that at first. But now they stressed me that they wanted me at receiver, and that's what I wanted to do, and I want to play that. So I made the decision. I made it happen.
Yeah, it all came full circle. And it also, like you said, you're being recruited kind of for both, because Brian Stewart and George Munoz played a big part in your recruitment, right? Right,
yeah. I talked to Coach Stewart a lot, especially during the summer. And I love talking to him still. And but it's just that I just really did not want to play DB. I want to take my chances at receiver, and I know I can thrive at that. So
how is your relationship built with, I guess, both of those guys? And are those your 2 best relationships on the coaching staff?
I talk to a lot of people. I talk to Coach Nance, Coach Larry McDonald, Coach Aranda all the time. Every time I'm on the phone with them, I get on the phone with him too. Coach Munoz too. Like literally every time I talk to them, I'll talk to Coach Aranda, and I'll talk to the whole staff. Coach Fedora, I've talked to him a few times. He was ecstatic to hear that I was coming there. I heard he called Kyron during his workout one day, and he was like, "We got Bonner," or something like that. And it was pretty cool to hear that story from a coach who told me who was with Kyron that day. And it was But I think I have a really good relationship with all the coaches, and I think that's what I loved about Baylor. I could talk to them easily, and like they all wanted me there, and it felt like from the defensive side to the offensive side to the special teams to the whole staff, I felt the love.
So watching Baylor this year, obviously they had some struggles, especially on the offensive side. So how do you think you can come in and maybe help the offense or maybe just add another dimension to it? Definitely.
I think my speed is a given. I think that with my speed, it'll definitely need to work on because the Big 12 is a fast league. But I definitely think I can take the top off of defenses. I want to perfect my route running with just comebacks and digs. I want to be that guy that can do all the routes, not just post, and goes. So I want to be that guy for them.
So you're not early enrolling, right? Or are you? Okay, so you're going to be running track. Yeah. You're going to be running track though, right?
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay. Do you have any guess on what you think you're going to run in the 100? I know your PR is 11:07, right?
Yeah, that was freshman year. That was freshman year. I ran a 10.9 in practice sophomore year. So, but I think that I've always been a 200, 400 runner. So the 100, like it's just a straightaway, and like I can do that. But I think I can. I want to go for a 10.5 for 100. But then the 200, I want to go for a 20.9, and then the 400, I want to go for a 46.
Okay. So I do want to talk to you a little bit about your high school season. I know y'all had a great run, had a great regular season. I know it ended kind of bittersweet for you.
Definitely, yeah.
But just talk about that experience. I know y'all had a really good team and made a really nice run. And I know you missed a few games, but had a very successful year as well, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah. The chemistry built literally that when COVID hit, the whole team got together and was like, we're going to work out this summer, get right still, because just in case we have the season, we're gonna be straight for it and win state championship. The second part didn't happen, but we still were a good team, and we had a lot of team chemistry happened with just all of us working out at the same time, waking up at the same time, eating lunch, dinner, and even breakfast together. So it was all great. And then when I missed a few games, it was because of a groin injury that I had happened 2 weeks before. I missed the 2 games, and I played my last home game as a senior, and then I missed the last 2 games. And it was tough to watch, but it was great to see how the team could do without me. Not saying that I was like the only part of that team, because we had definitely had some weapons. But it was good to see like how they stood, and they did very well. They won both games. They dominated both games. And just our last game, we just, as a team, our heart wasn't in it as much. Maybe it was. I don't know. It was just a lot of things that happened. If you watch the game, you could probably take some stuff out of it too. But yeah.
Where did you see the biggest improvement, I guess, in your game from last year to this year?
Definitely in my route running. Even though I did a lot of posts this year, but I felt like as the season progressed, my route running was a little bit more crisp, and like people could see that I could get in and out of breaks better than last year. Because last year I was just very raw. I just run a post and a go, catch the ball, run like for 40 yards for a touchdown. This year I was a little bit humble just with getting double teamed, knowing how to get out of that, knowing how to catch in traffic, get everything, honestly.
So I know you mentioned some of the Baylor recruits, the other commits in the class, but what's your relationship like with those guys? Is there any, guy or two that you have a really good relationship with coming in?
Yeah. So during the summer, also when I was with Maddox, my quarterback at St. Thomas, we also threw with Kyron Drones and CJ Goodry and a couple other guys too. But Kyron was his teammates with CJ, and CJ is actually going to U of H with Maddox, and I'm going to Baylor with Kyron. So it's pretty cool to do that now. But so I've talked to Kyron a few times before I committed, and just talking, just having conversations about what I'm going to do. And I kind of told him before everything happened that I was committing to Baylor. And I don't really know Javon Gibson that well, but I know we ran for the same track club in the this summer, but he stopped running track because of just football, I guess, or he didn't want to. But I never formally met him, but I know who he is. And he knows who I am, I think.
So have you and Kyron just talked about expectations, just like what y'all want to do at Baylor?
Definitely, yeah. We definitely want to win that Big 12 championship and potentially win that national championship. But just setting a tone and setting a good culture, just even though they already have that, but just making Baylor that great name again, just being the best that we can and being the best character. Because the reason also I committed to Baylor was because of how Coach Aranda talked about how he loved the players' characters and how he wanted to grow that in them as a person and then make them a better football player. And that's what I loved about that too, because he stressed that a lot.
Yeah, this has been a reoccurring just question that I've gotten a few times, but how much did you pay attention to the regular season for college football? Just like watching Baylor or watching the other teams in your recruitment, was that something big to you or not really?
It was like watching the teams that wanted me was pretty cool. I was like, oh my gosh, they want me. So that's pretty cool. I can watch them play now. And I started watching Baylor as they started recruiting me more. And they played well against Oklahoma, I thought. The Oklahoma State was a tough game for them. But I just saw it where I could be used. And I was like, okay, I could do that. I can return that kick. I can catch that ball if needed be and stuff like that. And I honestly think that the record doesn't faze me just because even in Coach Rule's first year, he went, I think, 1-11. So, I mean, it's not like a 1 year is not going to do anything to me. A record is not going to do anything to me right now.
Well, Baylor Nation, that is Cam Bonner. Thank you so much, Cam, for doing this interview with us. I know you're pumped to be a Bear, but I did want to give you the chance to just say something to Baylor Nation, whatever's on your mind right now.
Baylor Nation, you're getting a great one. I'm excited to be there in the fall and SicEm. Yes, sir.
So there you go. There's Cam Bonner. He will become official later on today. But wide receiver out of St. Thomas, one of 4 high school wide receivers that Baylor is signing today, and I believe 2 of the 4, and he will be 3 of the 4. And then Elijah Bean, who will be an early enrollee, he's the only receiver, I believe, that hasn't signed just yet because Javon Gibson already made it official. Bonner will make it official later on today, as will Bean, and Monterey Baldwin's already signed. And how about a little signing day surprise, folks? You don't always get these, but there's typically like 1 or so surprises, and maybe if you're really, rolling on along, you'll have, more than 1, but Baylor's got at least 1 for today. A nice little signing day surprise. If you're a member of SicEm365.com, then you were aware that this was a possibility at some point that Baylor would be in the grad transfer market. And you would know, if you were listening or reading SicEm365.com, that there was one player in particular out of the Ivy League that there seemed to be a pretty good connection with. A former Texas high school football player out of Argyle, Drew Estrada, has played the last few years at Dartmouth. He's a grad transfer, and he's now a Baylor Bear. Baylor announcing that just a few moments ago. Drew Estrada, Dartmouth wide receiver. Grayson will tell you, I'm sure, about the huge numbers he put up and all of that, but he is making it official. He's signed, and he is your signing day surprise for the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, and he went to Argyle High School out of Argyle, of course, and he had
out of Fort Worth.
Yeah, out of Fort Worth.
Yeah,
so,
no, it's way north.
Yeah,
it's more Denton.
Yeah,
up 377.
And he put together a really nice career there. 2,100 receiving yards and 24 touchdowns, along with 530 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Also interesting to note, he was district MVP for soccer as well. 22 goals and 15 assists. So an overall just really good athlete. But at Dartmouth, really had a special junior season, and that's what got him the looks. He got offers from Utah, SMU, Florida State, TCU, along with Baylor. Last year, all Ivy League performer for the Big Green. 51 passes caught for 827 yards and 8 touchdowns. Also had 222 yards and a touchdown on the ground. And I know I've mentioned this a few times on the board. Reminds me a lot of a guy like Ryan Switzer, who obviously was at North Carolina with Larry Fedora. He can do a lot of the similar things from that slot position. But I'll also say Drew, in his highlights and what I've seen from him at Dartmouth, he can line up pretty much anywhere. I mean, he's lined up at running back. He's lined up at outside receiver in the slot. He can do a lot of different things, and it's going to give this Baylor offensive staff another weapon to build around and a guy with a lot of experience. This is a huge pickup and one that if you do pay attention to SicEm365 premium side, I've had a prediction for him for a little while now, and he's been a guy who Baylor was very confident that they could possibly land.
Did you expect him signing day?
I didn't until actually Colt and I had kind of talked about it a little bit, that it could be very much a possibility, which is why it's loaded up and ready to go.
I thought it was just the magic of Armstrong and Jack. Was just pulling it up that quickly.
Well, everyone wanted a signing day surprise, and you definitely got one with this pickup.
I did download his highlights like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, attaboy. There you go.
No, he finally landed one out of Argyle. I mean, my buddy Kenny Arthur with the Chick-fil-A up there in Flower Mound finally gets an Argyle kid at Baylor. So he's been trying for so long, and he's now he's already sent me text how exhilarated he is. He loves this kid. Again, it's a guy that's 6 foot, 175, 180, goes off to Ivy League, gets his degree. Now he's going to take his shot on the Power 5 level. Great thing about the grad transfer market to see something like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Drew Estrada, maybe not a name that you knew. If you're a SicEm365.com premium member, you did, and you knew there was a pretty good shot he would end up being a Baylor Bear, and now he is. So he is not somebody that we necessarily expected because he's a grad transfer, not a recruit, but he will join this new batch of recruits, which this class is almost done. I mean, they got a handful of guys. We know all of those guys are signing. The only two that we really didn't have word on was Tyrone Brown, and then he signed right after I asked about him, and then Cisco Caston, and then he signed really after we talked about him. So the other remaining guys at this point, you've already heard interviews with Grayson in 2 of the cases, so we know they're signing, and I think the other 2 or 3, they're just signing later. So the class isn't all the way done, but it's close to it. It's close to done, and now we have a surprise with Estrada, and now Cam Bonner's official. So there you go. Cameron Bonner, wide receiver out of St. Thomas. You just heard that interview with Grayson. He's just coming down the pipeline now, according to the Baylor football Twitter account, as officially having signed. So there you go. You just heard from him moments ago. Boom, he's in the bag. So a couple receivers. They got 5 receivers now that will be new faces coming in next year, guys. 4 high school kids and the transfer in Drew Estrada. So Cam Bonner, Drew Estrada coming down here in the last few moments, and George Munoz and company will have some new toys to work with coming up in the spring and fall.
And Colt just sent a text. There might be one more surprise.
Oh, buddy. All right. Well, I'm all for surprises. I will say, I'll pass along, there's a name that you mentioned earlier, Jalen Samuels, signs with SMU. So that came down officially. That was just a name that Grayson had mentioned is, maybe just, look out for him, but he signs with SMU, so we can just forget his name at this point, right?
Yeah, that's a good get for them.
I already forgot who it was. Who were we talking about? Drew Estrada, the new Baylor grad transfer wide receiver. That's what we're focused on here.
Yeah, and I know we're still waiting on. I will say, Amani Watkins told me 9.
I was looking for him, and I hadn't seen anything.
Still nothing. So curious what's going to happen there or how things unfold. But Baylor doing a nice job, and that pickup of Drew Estrada is a big one. You mentioned Cam Bonner now officially in.
Monty Watkins just signed with TCU.
He did? Yeah. Okay, yeah. And that was kind of my lean and my thought process there. So I'm wondering who could be left on the table. But I will say, as far as the wide receiver position goes, it looks like Baylor is addressing it extremely well and doing a great job at making that class a big one.
Yeah, and we got another new one coming in now. Not a new one, but just another official one I'll mention in just a second. But, I mean, you look at what could be back at wide receiver next year. R.J. Sneed, obviously, is the key. He's the guy in the wide receiver core right now. Tyquan Thornton, is he back next year? He's, scheduled to be, a senior next year. So is it next year? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's,
junior senior because he gets his year back.
So, yeah, it's that weird thing. Weird. Yeah, it's so weird. So, Tyquan Thornton, R.J. Sneed, you've got, Jalen Ellis, obviously. You've got Gavin Holmes. And you've got guys that we really haven't heard a lot about, like the Jackson Gleasons and those types of players as well. But now you got 5 new guys that are going to be entering the fold. So that's going to be quite the competition. And, they could use more receivers.
Yeah, and it was a key area to address. It wouldn't shock me if they added another wide receiver. Honestly, that would not stun me at all, whether it's through the transfer portal or in this class.
His tagline, vertical threat.
That's a great one for Cam. And but my favorite one is the one that just came in.
Yes, Connor Heffernan is now official offensive lineman out of Georgetown High School. He just tweeted out, actually, as Baylor sent out his cover athlete, their theme for this year. They're sending out these themed tweets. He responded, "Let's get to work." So he's signed. They've tweeted it, and he's already responded to it. And Connor Heffernan is official.
The Trench Bully.
The Trench Bully.
This is such a great title.
I think we, depending on how he plays, if he can live up to that nickname, that would be fantastic. And if he does, then we're definitely using that nickname. I feel like. Yeah. Trench Bully. I like it.
That's such a great one. Very fitting for him. And he is a guy who does look like someone that's going to dominate in the trenches. And great to have him locked and loaded. I know for Baylor in this class, the offensive line was a big area of concern and a big area they needed to address. Heffernan is already locked in. Lingyell's already locked in. And Tate Williams already did an interview with him, so he's pretty much already locked in as well. So great stuff by the Baylor staff and Joe Wickline.
So we're waiting on Tate Williams, Tevin Williams.
Yeah, there's 4 out there.
Devin Lemire and
let's see.
Bean?
And Bean, Elijah Bean. Yep. Devin Lemire, who we know signing. We've already heard from him. Tevin Williams, we know signing. Tate Williams, we know signing. And so really the only one that we haven't heard anything about is Elijah Bean. But
and
everything else.
And then a possible
surprise or something, According to...
Might not happen today, though.
Okay.
Might be something that drags on. Because remember, this is signing day period.
Right.
So there is time... it goes from the 16th to the 18th. So a little bit of time in there to add some more guys and get some more pen to paper before February.
How much room are they working with at this point, you think?
Well, the last I heard based on numbers for this class in particular.
And does this include the couple now extra spots that have opened up with Charlie and John Lovett?
Yeah, that's true. I was hearing playing with the number probably right around 22 or 23, but I will say that I think that number's looking more like 20 in the class. And the reason I say that is because I think they're looking to add with transfers. And so therefore, I don't quite consider that the 2021 class when I'm talking about it. So they're playing with extra spots for sure beyond just whatever they're going to get in the official 2021 class.
So got some room to work with. Telling y'all, if you're not a member of the SicEm365 premium section, well, you would have already known about Drew Estrada. You would have known about a lot of when these guys are going to be signing and all that. You would have known about a lot of these guys before they committed over the course of the last year as well. But man, I'm telling you right now, if you're looking for an interesting offseason and a ripe time to sign up, it is right now with all that's going on and all that will be going on during this offseason. Maybe not as much changeover as you maybe thought 3-4 weeks ago, but there's already been a little bit of change, and there could be more. And, certainly we still have a whole offseason of coaches and things like that to keep an eye on as well. It's going to be a fascinating offseason. It really is, especially leading into them having real workouts and real spring ball, and
praise the Lord, that's coming up.
Yeah, right? And that was one thing. I don't know if you guys noticed in Dave Aranda's press conference, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday on SicEm365 radio. But one comment he just kind of made in passing was, "We got to get guys weight right because they're not even right to play. They're not at the right weight, whether it be because of lack of off-season conditioning or whether it's because they were sick and then came back after dropping weight or whatever the case may be." So,
I know that we talked to some people around the administration of the football administration side, and they were talking about certain players had lost 30 pounds.
Wow.
Defensive linemen, offensive linemen lost 30 pounds in there, and that's muscle. It wasn't. It wasn't fat. It was muscle, and so by the time they got back into playing, they weren't ready to play, but they had to play because they're the only people that could play. Right. Because the other guys were out on tracing or with COVID. So let's get the vaccine. I guess the vaccine is supposed to roll out to everybody by April or whatever, and it's 2 shots. So if it started rolling out in Florida yesterday or the day before. So if everybody gets it and everybody gets if it's 95% as they say, then get it done and let's get back to some normalcy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Man, I really want to see some spring ball. I think it'll be fascinating. Absolutely. And not just because we didn't have it last year. That's part of why is just not having it. But, I'm fascinated by this team this offseason.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's going to be so many different things to talk about.
And so many positions up for grabs.
Yes.
Just a lot of competition, which is what you want to see. And I'm excited that there's also, like we've talked about, these early enrollees that are going to come in and get a chance to put their fingerprints on a position and potentially maybe shake up the depth chart even more. It's what you need. You need healthy competition. That was something that I know Dave Aranda and the staff were craving. It was mentioned a million times on the offensive line how the backups were the starters. And that just simply cannot be the case. And so now I think you're going to see a team that has the depth to play guys, 1 through 5, left tackle through right tackle, and also have a backup 5 left tackle through right tackle, which would be massive for this team's progression. Because if you don't practice like you play, how are you going to get any better? And I think that's where they're trying to get to.
And that's one of those things with Matt Rule is they practiced so hard so that when they went out there, playing was actually easier. And you saw that work last year for them where they would outlast teams and just were more physical than teams. And there was still some physicality this year, but there was a lack of it at times that you could attribute to just the weird entry into the offseason or guys dropping 30 pounds over the course of having COVID or whatever. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this team looks like in the spring and what they end up bringing in. But Drew Estrada is a nice little surprise today. So that is going to be a group of wide receivers to watch, guys. And then especially coming back to what's on campus as well. Like, that's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. Especially if Estrada you would expect to play because he's not grad transferring to sit.
No.
But these young guys who kind of cracks that as well. So taking a look at Baylor's recruiting class entering today. Beautiful graphic done by Cole Barber, and we got Jack and Armstrong here, have been doing a great job as well. Kyron Drones, he has not had a graphic release yet, but his father said about 2 hours ago that he signed, so we're counting him.
What's going on?
I don't know. I don't know.
I trust Coach Drones.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just release it, Baylor.
Right. But maybe saving the QB for the last graphic they put out there to make everybody go crazy. I don't know, but we're considering him signed. So as of right now, that leaves Tate Williams, Tevin Williams, and Devin Lemire, along with Elijah Bean. And as I mentioned a little while ago, everybody but Elijah Bean we know is signing later this afternoon, and he might very well be too. We just haven't seen anything on that yet. And that's about it. That's where they stand at this point. So what was kind of a slow start for Baylor, then it was like a rapid fire of like 5 guys in a row. And then it was like an hour and a half of nobody. At least it felt that way. And then another rapid fire. So I would imagine here pretty soon they'll probably have another rapid fire. Go ahead and put a bow on this thing. And by the time we hit SicEm365 radio at 3 o'clock, I would think this class would be about sewn up.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to sign all the commits, which, again, that was the goal coming into today. Sign all the commits that you have, and if you add a couple extras, great. And Drew Estrada is kind of the perfect example of that, even though no one was really talking about him, obviously, as part of the 2021 class.
Yeah.
But he's a very pleasant surprise on signing day, and everyone was actually asking about this. I don't know, Brian, if you know the perfect example, but they were asking, when's the last time Baylor got a positive surprise on signing day?
I was going to say in general, but on signing day, yeah, you're right.
And I couldn't really think of too many. I know, I believe it was 2018, Isaiah Howard was kind of a random one that signed.
Whatever happened to him?
Which, that was, that one.
Completely forgot about that name.
And then, obviously, the bad surprise with Hookfen that same year. So I couldn't think of a positive.
Way to bring the mood down, Grayson.
I know.
No, that was a bad signing day surprise. So good ones have been few and far between, yeah.
I mean, the emojis of hell.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've been around a while now, and I don't recall too many I wasn't expecting that on signing day.
Yeah.
As far as Baylor landing guys. Yeah.
And it has to be on the day, you know what I mean? Not something that's...
I mean, I know that 2 years ago it was. I remember texting back and forth with Colt about Texas trying to rip apart their class the night before, and Patrick Hudson and whether or not he was going to sign, and that was 8 hours before signing day. But we know how that all how that all worked out. But hey, let's celebrate a good surprise today. Drew Estrada, wide receiver from Cornell, now a member of the Baylor Bears.
I'm trying to think back. I mean,
actually, Dartmouth.
Dartmouth.
Our very own JD Piquel is from Cornell.
I saw him, and that's why I slipped and said Cornell. I'm sorry, Drew, that I offended you that way by mentioning a lesser school. I'm just kidding, JD. I'm going to fight everybody. What do y'all think of that? But JD did say in the text message, Estrada is a dog, but didn't beat Cornell his junior year, but still a dog. So he is a dog, but he did not beat JD's team.
Funny enough, JD is actually the last transfer to Baylor from an Ivy League school.
Not anymore.
Now it's Drew Estrada.
He is now a trivia question. Who was the last Baylor transfer from the Ivy League before Drew Estrada? And that would be
JD Piquel.
JD Piquel of SicEm365 Radio. So there you go with that.
And before that,
Makai Mason?
Crickets. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, that's Baylor basketball. I'm ready to see them get back on the court for sure. And I know that Ashley, the whole website, Jason, all of us, everybody out there is looking for Baylor basketball to get back on the court. Baylor women, meanwhile, they are going to be back on the court later on tonight as they get back to work. Not even later on tonight, here in about 4 hours. They got the afternoon game. I forgot about that. So 2 p.m. for the Lady Bears, and they will be taking on Southern. So that will start at 2, and that will be over by 2:05.
Today?
Yeah.
I thought it was on the 18th.
Is it? No, I think it's today. They sent out the game day tweet. So, they're taking on Southern today at 2 o'clock.
That's how much it matters.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they'll start at 2. It'll be over by 2:05, and we'll see the Lady Bears probably empty the bench. I mean, that's what's likely to happen there. But, they're about to go into a stretch of 3 games in 4 days. So Baylor and Southern coming up later on, and we'll see what happens with the men. Hopefully sooner rather than later they get back to it as well. But hey, banner day so far for Baylor football. Exactly what you wanted to see, and just inking everybody you're supposed to, and also adding Drew Estrada as well. So feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah, and I think the staff's feeling great about how this day's gone. And I know we mentioned some guys who could possibly be additions to the class, but again, that was just extra fluff. They feel good about where they are. February is going to be a big day to target. I do think Baylor will add a few more. I also think the transfer portal is just so crazy this year that I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't go out and really try to hit that hard and try to land some impactful guys who could help you next year instead of maybe going the all-freshman route. Because I think Baylor does feel pretty good about some of the younger guys they do have on their roster, along with this class.
I mean, there's 1,600 plus kids now in the transfer portal.
Crazy.
So you're going to have your pick on some of these guys that you really need because not everybody's got spots.
Right.
Not everybody's going to have spots. So what are you going to do? I mean, these kids, it's not a good situation.
Oh, there's gonna be some rude awakenings for a lot of kids out there, and you've got the free year and you got the free transfer and all of that, but it's either not having the proper people around them to spit the real truth to them, or whatever else it may be. But yeah, there are kids that get lied to, or maybe think differently than what they're actually viewed as by other people, and think like, oh yeah, I'm doing fine here, but I'll get in the transfer portal and I'll go to a bigger school, and typically it doesn't work that way. Typically those guys end up at a smaller school, although I do think in Baylor's case, I do think John Lovett will probably end up at a solid Power 5. I'm not sure about Charlie Brewer, but
I think he will too, and I think Terry's got a shot.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Yusuf Terry. Yeah.
He'll be at Rutgers or something.
Yeah, West Virginia, something like that. Yeah, I forgot about him already. But, yeah, that's 3 spots that opened up just since the last month or so.
Grayson, remember we went to the opening and Tyke Smith was there, and he's like, yeah, I'm coming to Baylor with Yusuf.
Stud.
If only.
No, but Baylor quit recruiting him.
And then Baylor recruiting him after that.
And he's been a stud. I mean, an absolute stud.
But he was 5'10", 5'11".
Right, so you didn't trust it necessarily.
Does Aranda have those same types of restrictions?
No,
not okay.
No, he's been. It's at various positions.
I mean, he's not going to obviously recruit a 5'3" offensive lineman, but
I mean, to put it plainly, Dakota Dwell Robinson and Byron Murphy were not targets for the previous staff.
Gotcha.
And they were all in for this new staff. So the height and the measurables like that, especially on the defensive line, is not as strict as it was under Rule. Gabe Hall was like the prototypical guy for Rule and staff, and for these guys, it's not necessarily following that same trend.
So you had the projects under Rule with measurables, while Aranda has players, and if they meet those projectables, that's also a plus.
Yeah, it's more of a mixture. Game film matters a whole lot more than I think the last staff did. You had to have the measurables or you weren't getting an offer. It was just pretty plain and simple.
So do you think a Jackson player would get offered by this staff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Travius Hodges?
Well, he got offered by the last staff.
Right, but like literally on signing day practically, or the week leading into it.
That
I know how weird that was, but I'm just saying, like he waited a really long time before he got an offer.
I don't know about him.
Okay, that's fair.
And here's the thing: is he's probably in the system he needs to be in at TCU.
Yeah.
And he's flourished. He's been great under it for sure.
But
yeah,
there's advantages and disadvantages.
Sure. Yeah, I just hadn't really thought about that too much with Aranda and kind of what his philosophy was. That's why I was curious about that. So, I mean, here we are. There's 3 or 4 names left. I mean, what do you guys think? You got anything left to say?
They're all in. They're in. I mean, they're going to be in if they are not already in. I think 2 of these. Tevin Williams should be in. They're probably making in their graphic right now. Tate Williams, I'm not worried a single bit about that.
Devin's at noon.
And then Devin at noon. So, I think that's essentially a wrap. I think so here we are. I think it's a solid class, very versatile, athletic group that'll be ready to play here in 2 or 3 years.
Grayson, any final thoughts, I guess, before we go here?
Yeah, just a big congratulations to all the commits around the country that are signing today, especially the Baylor signees. Just it's been a long process for these guys. I think we'd be remiss not talking about the fact that these guys went through a whole lot of hardship to get to this point right now, not being able to go to camps, not being able to have official visits, not being able to go and get a feel for the campuses that they were looking to commit to. So big props to the 2021 class. Y'all are terrific guys and terrific just competitors. And so very excited to see this class flourish going on to the next level. And also wanted to say big congrats to the Baylor staff because first complete class on the early signing day. Dave Aranda and staff did a great job. They've hit a lot of their key positions, added a grad transfer. This has been a big day for them as well. And Baylor football is in a better place today than it was yesterday, which I think is a big point in saying on signing day.
Here, get Brian's mic right there.
Yeah, I do think there's one thing to mention too, though. Since there weren't visits, I do think we're going to see a huge transfer portal next year.
Oh, yeah. Kim Mulkey actually said that she feels like this year's going to be wild, but it's the year after, because not only will you have like this bulge of like an overabundance of names this time around, thus leaving a lot of guys kind of scattered, but also when you have to bring that scholarship limitation back down for 2022, that's going to get tricky. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting. And you're right, man. Like these guys are going to be arriving on campus and they're like, Washington was my dream school. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm 2,000 miles away from home. This is not what I thought this was going to be. You know,
This looked great on Skype.
Exactly.
And now it rains every day.
Exactly.
The other thing is, my coach got fired.
That also does happen from time to time.
I mean, think about this in Austin and Texas Tech. Those guys are dead men walking.
Mm-hmm.
We're watching it. And
And
right now you get those two guys that seem to be so what happens there? I mean, you've already seen an exodus at Texas. I mean, there's 6 guys in the past 2 days that have opted out or declared or whatever you want to call it. And then Texas Tech had, I think, 5. So
our old buddy Jack Anderson, one of those from Texas Tech.
I haven't seen him. I don't know. He's probably he'll probably up in the pros and all, but
yeah,
it's guys that have had Keshawn Carter is hauled, and so it's going to be really interesting because no matter what you show on a virtual visit, it's not the same. And I think Baylor, the staff is genuine. I don't really see the problem here. But again, it could. There's really, just Dakota Robinson's the furthest. out of Missouri. So it looks great to him now. That'd be somebody that you're talking about for, being far from home, right?
Right.
But I really don't think that. I think Baylor's a very inviting place, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. But there's some other schools that you're going to have that problem with.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we're going to see some fallout from signing day, to be sure. Not necessarily here in Waco, but somewhere else we will definitely see it, where the situations that you're talking about could potentially occur. And before we go here, and I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys have as well. Hopefully everybody out there listening has had a good time joining us the last couple of hours and just going over this class and breaking the news as they've been officially signed, and Baylor's tweeted that out. But as it stands right now, Baylor's going to probably end up with a class like right in the middle of the Big 12, which, hey, could be worse given the year that you just had. Could be better, but that's why you go and have a really strong offseason, a really solid spring, and these new guys come in, you go get some transfers, and you go win 7, 8, 9 games next year, and you end up in the top third of the Big 12. But right now they're going to probably end up in about the middle behind OU, Texas, and that will basically never change, really. Oklahoma State and West Virginia. Looks like TCU's making a push as well, so they might jump in there. But it's not the end, right? Because there's still another signing day to go. So a lot to occur between now and the first Wednesday in February. But a lot occurred today, including a surprise signee with Drew Estrada out of the Ivy League. So Baylor, with their class pretty much all complete, that'll do it for us. We'll have much more on this on signing day in general, more interviews. You'll hear from Kyron Drones. You'll hear from a lot of different people coming up today at 3 o'clock with myself, along with David Smoak and Paul Catalina on SicEm365 Radio. But I'll take one last look here. No new graphic from Baylor. So as it stands, as we leave you now, the only names they're waiting on, Tate Williams, Tevin Williams, Devin Lemire, Elijah Bean, and as I've mentioned a couple of times now, 3 of those 4 we already know what the deal is, and Elijah Bean could be at any moment. We'll see what happens there. But they are going to, it looks like, sign probably all 17 of their players today, at least 16 out of the 17, and they've already added the Ivy League transfer in Drew Estrada as well. So very successful day. And again, I hope you've enjoyed this broadcast, our first signing day special here for SicEm365.com and inside these beautiful studios that we've got here. Guys, anything before we go? Anything left to say?
Just hope we have many more of these.
Yes.
Many more of these signing day shows. This has been a lot of fun, and we'll get another one in February for sure.
Yeah, we do have another one coming for sure in February.
Oh, yeah. Loving this. I mean, it's great. It's great to be here. I know that it's really funny. I mean, Colt and I started doing this a little bit, and then never, ever dreamed it'd be something this size. I mean, this is the only signing day show of the day for Baylor. So I know that the numbers look really great, and we'll continue doing them. I mean, as long as we can afford to, I guess.
Yeah.
But, we're doing great on that side too. So it's a really fun thing to do for the community, for Baylor, for the fans, for us. We love it. So let's keep doing it and go forward.
Yeah, hopefully this is the first of many. It's at least the first of 2 that will be coming up, because obviously we'll have another one on the first Wednesday in February. But, yeah, hopefully the first of many signing day number 1s. It's been a lot of fun here over the last 3 hours with you guys, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully this becomes a regular part of your routine. And if you like what you heard today, you can hear similar each day, 3 o'clock, SicEm365 Radio. We got big plans in the works that you'll know a lot more about very, very soon on that side of things. But also on the website side of things, right now on the premium side, you've got talk about all these guys that have signed. You've got discussion going on. You've got notes like Drew Estrada that wouldn't be a total surprise to you if you were a member of the premium section, because that's been known for like the last few days, quite frankly. Just a surprise that he signed today, but that's been out there. So I want to thank Colt Barber. I want to thank him for the graphics and all the work that he's put in to everything and the recruiting side of things. Big thank you to Jack and Armstrong. I know you guys have had an early morning and have done a great job as well putting things together. So appreciate you guys. We'll see y'all here in a little while. Thank you to Brian Ethridge as well, of course, and Grayson Grunhoefer. Guys, it was a lot of fun. And like I said, hopefully we do this again pretty soon. So definitely enjoying being in your company. Grayson, we'll trust the podcast it up tomorrow. I don't know what we'll have left to say, but we will trust the podcast it up tomorrow. So for Brian and Grayson and Jack, and what was your name again? Armstrong, that's right. No, for the great Armstrong Sims, I'm Craig Smoak. Tune back in today, 3 o'clock, SicEm365 Radio. And definitely check out SicEm365.com.